Welcome to Wednesday Comics.
Brought to you by rootsoftheswampthing.com and SuperCon 2018 Return of the Con.
Hey everyone, keep turning those pages.
Welcome to Wednesday Comics. To my right, we have Alec Holland himself. Alex, how you doing?
Hello everybody.
And across from me, Alex Olson himself. Garrett, how you doing?
Wait, what? We're both Alec?
No, he's Alec. You're
I'm
Alex.
Holland. Alex Olson.
I'm Alex.
Olson.
Olson. Yes.
Let me say it again. Olson.
And
Or my
to
niece is
my
Mary
left,
Jane Ashley.
the Swamp Thing himself, John Boylan, with us today
Howdy doody.
for a special episode of Wednesday Comics. And I am a Pog himself, man. I am coming from.
Are you the yellow pog?
I'm all together, baby. I'm the dead one.
You're the gold turtle.
All
There's
right.
the title of this episode, John. Howdy doody.
We are here with our. Garrett, what's it called?
Wednesday Comics, League of Extraordinary Gentle People, proudly presents
Saga the Swamp Thing, Volume 2.
Book.
Book
right,
Club.
Right in the cover.
Book Club.
This
Book Club TM.
is our quarterly book club. We read it's some sort of work. It doesn't have to be something that is held in high regard, but I think mostly we picked the stuff that's like, classical.
I just asked for suggestions.
And
And it was a good book, and I liked it. Let's
speaking
go
of
for
which, stay tuned to the end. The next pick is coming up, and we'll give you the date you have to read it by. Saga the Swamp Thing, Book 2. This is Stephen Bissett. Alan Moore. This is his next set of comics that he wrote. And then John, how do you say his last name, John? John Totalben?
Totalman.
This is Vertigo Comics. Also, Kate Berger, or Karen Berger, the editor, who now is the editor over at Dark Horse,
Oh, Dark Horse.
doing a line of books. Alex gets one of them. How's it so far?
It's pretty good.
What book?
I forget what it's called. The
Umbrella Academy.
No, David Aha book.
Oh, The Seeds. Issue 3 hasn't came out in 2 months, 3 months
That's a good thing.
with Ann Nocent.
I asked if it was good. I didn't ask for the release schedule. Is it good?
Yeah, it was good.
All right. That's
Sure.
There's a lot of rules to this show.
She's doing a lot of good work over there. But this is book 2 of Saga the Swamp Thing. We talked about book 1, what was that, 2 quarters ago?
Yep.
So go in there. John also joined us for that. That was an insightful show. It was, we ran the docket on the swamp and talked about all things green and got into it. One of my favorite issues of all time, I figured out, is in that collection, Anatomy of a Body, right?
Anatomy lesson.
Oh, Anatomy Lesson. What's
It's your favorite so much you don't remember the title.
well, I don't remember what happened yesterday, so
That's true.
Which also, I think since our last book club show, they announced they're making a Swamp Thing TV show. Or was that announced last time? I think it happened in between.
It's been in the works, but
And they also announced they're adapting that issue to the TV show, so we'll see that, which is exciting now that we're into this. But this is book 2. We're past that now. Alan Moore is into the swamp. He is got his feet settled and moving on with the story. So first off, before we get to it, and we'll get the expert opinion here in a second, but I want to say first, Alex Pastrello, not Alex Olson over here. Book 2, it was your pick, right? You got a suggestion on Twitter. It was like, let's do it. Overall, what do you think?
Overall, was
No
fun.
spoilers at the beginning here. Just tell me, what do you think about this book?
It's good.
It's good. What about
You want?
I mean, you can get into it without specific.
I'm just saying that there's one issue in this book. Overall, I would have given this like an amazing answer to this, but there's one issue in this book that really did kind of take me out of it. Did kind of not ruin it, but it did kind of sour the taste of this. Otherwise, this book is amazing, and it grabs me where it needs to in the heart, not other places.
Hey, you know what that means if you get grabbed by the heart.
Ooh.
We'll talk about that later. Garrett,
Yeah.
what do you think overall?
I really did love it. I think I agree with Alex. There's one issue that kind of like takes you out of it. It's a little more, how would you say it, more quirky than the serious story that we're reading in Swamp Thing. But it's so easy to get drawn back into that world. And by time the book, you get to the back cover, you're just like, shit, and I got to when am I going to read the next one? Like, I just want to keep reading. So I think Alan Moore really has great grasp on Swamp Thing. And man, it was really great and really, for at least at me, I don't know a lot about Swamp Thing. I've been learning more and more, especially after this podcast and whatnot and meeting John. But it's really exciting to learn all these things about Swamp Thing.
So I feel like that issue, here's what I think. I think that issue does kind of interrupt the pace, but I don't think overall it's a bad issue. It's just misplaced, I think, because it's very different than the rest of it. I think the art, I still like the art in that section, and I liked the way the story was going, but it just throws you off because you're not used to like that type of story.
Well, happiness in general.
Well, I mean, before that and after that, it's a very like lyrical kind of like, insightful comic, and then that one is more apparent like what's going on. So I just feel like your brain is more like, okay, I'm in this mood, and then it's like, oh, here we go. And like I think what we called it when we all talked about it earlier was like it's kind of Looney Tune-ish, and it's weird to be watching something where we'll talk about spoilers later, but and then all of a sudden go, hey, let's watch the Looney Tunes for a second here. But otherwise, any other day, I like the Looney Tunes.
I think the only thing that bothered me about that whole issue was just the dialogue, like the way the words were written. It didn't read as I would read a book, if that makes sense. Like there's words that it doesn't make sense, the word formations, and that's the thing that.
Hey, you know what I actually saw on Facebook? That someone put out like a paragraph with those kind of words where you can still read what the word is, but it's a little more difficult. It means you're more intelligent if you can read that, so you're not.
John, let me ask you a question. Expert opinion here to my left.
That's the show.
Overall, on the pantheon of Swamp Thing stories, this collection of 7 issues?
Yes.
7 issues. We have 34 is the last issue. What's the first one, Alex? 28? 28 through 34 and an annual right in the middle. How does this rank on the pantheon? Is this like a good collection, or does it get better later on?
Yeah, it's a good collection, and both, and it gets better later on. But the weird thing about these first 2 books, so Saga of the Swamp Thing 1 trade paperback, Moore is jumping into the story. He's doing a lot of like establishing, and then the second one, I think that the creative team kind of realized how ambitious the project was, and so in the second book they had to pump the brakes a bit with 2 issues, and then in Saga of the Swamp Thing book 3, then it's kind of like full board and it kind of goes bananas. So even though the Saga of the Swamp Thing trade paperback 1 and 2 are amazing, there is this kind of you can tell the gears are kind of warming up.
We're ramping up.
Yes,
you got to do a little start off first. Sometimes you give yourself a little running start. That's what it was.
It's pretty exciting.
By the way, also I was thinking about Alan Moore while you were talking about that, about how he got started, like try to get into it. I noticed that we call our book club the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen People, but it's not been one of the books we picked. So that's also Alan Moore.
Well,
and it's coming back, right? I think that's coming back.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I think so.
Yeah.
Not already, right?
Yeah, it's coming back.
Oh, they're doing a sequel. Yeah,
they're doing a sequel. So
a movie. Oh, I thought they were doing a book series too.
Yeah,
no, that's why I didn't hear about a movie, just the book series.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's coming back. So who knows? Somebody show up later.
Wait, is Sean Connery still alive? I'm just kidding.
No, but he did retire. Yes, he is.
Oh,
No, he's dead.
No,
You heard it here first.
yes.
no, but he did retire from that.
No, he's dead. But
He can make a return appearance.
he's showing up. The last movie he did was an animated piece of shit. So
That was terrible.
What movie?
Ooh, you
It was
don't.
a Scottish animation.
Yes, and it was not good. Not that I watched it, but I saw enough of it to be scarred.
Everyone should watch the trailer.
Just Google
Terrible.
search Sean Connery animated movie, and I mean at your own risk, because afterwards you'll turn into Nick Fury, you'll gouge your eye out. So, actually, you might go bird box on that and cover your eyes for the rest of your life. So, here we are, Saga of the Swamp Thing spoilers from here on out, but I think we all recommend it. And so, if you listen to our first one, or you are interested in the,
I hope you're recording.
God hope so.
Been in the Phantom Zone too many times.
Okay.
So that happens when you go on location.
Yeah, and use a different computer. So, what was I saying? Oh, if you listen to it, that's the non-spoiler review. So go ahead and pick it up. We all recommend it.
Gouge out your eye.
And I do think overall, let me give you this little plug here if you're not convinced yet. I think, if anything, this convinced me that it's not only a flash in the pan with the first book and Alan Moore is still strong in this one, and I can only see it continuing because there's little seeds of story in this book too that we don't get a resolution to. I'm going to ask John about it. It looks like he's setting something up, and hoping to get there because I'm curious what that is. But we're going with the spoilers now, so you warned. We're going to talk about book 2. You read it along with us. Hello, we're here, and so we start off right. The last issue or the last series, we had a lot of Alec coming to terms with what he became and realizing, hey, not a dude anymore. I'm not Alec. I'm actually a Swamp Thing.
I'm not a dude anymore.
And then we start right when he's with Abigail.
That's the title of my memoir.
Abby.
I thought it starts with him creating his grave.
Oh, that's right. He goes and finds Alec's skeleton. He's trying to find it. He's saying, I remember, and he's looking, right, and he can't find it, and he's saying, well, like my body, I can't sense it, and he's trying to figure out where it is, right? And he knows he jumped into the swamp. There's a lot of flashbacks of him going back to places and like kind of seeing what happened, daydreaming kind of like. And eventually realizes that the bones are still there. Them bones, right in the bottom. By the way, that's a Scuffsnator run. Them bones. A Swamp Thing. And goes to the bottom of the lake, brings it back up, and buries him to make him finally at peace. That comes into play later. Finally at peace, and comes to terms, not fully, because we'll see in a second here he gets a little mad. Not fully, but at least he's like, okay, I'm not that guy anymore. Like, this is him being like, okay.
Like, I have his memories, but I am not Alec Holland.
Yeah, I'm not. I realize now I'm accepting. I think that's him finally accepting and putting to rest, being like, I'm not that bag of bones for
Someone gonna start singing? Or?
No. Bag of bones anymore. Like, I'm this thing. Let's figure this out. Great art, Stephen Bissett. Hey, was there another artist in a couple of these issues?
There was. So, excuse me, in Saga of the Swamp Thing, number 28, The Burial, it was actually McManus. What is his first name?
Sean.
Thank you, Sean McManus.
Is it like helping out Stephen Bissett, or did he actually do major parts of that issue?
He did major parts, and unfortunately, I don't recall who inked it.
I don't really remember.
Nope, it wasn't. Sean McManus did. He was the guest artist, and he's even credited as the guest artist. So, like we were saying earlier, there's two stories or two books that are in this trade paperback that one Sean McManus did, and the other artist we'll get to when we get to that book. But yeah, the creative team had to take a break because they were really pumping out a ton of artwork, and so yeah, this is one of those issues where they kind of take a break.
I was asking because I don't really feel like besides the aforementioned Porg, what's it?
Pog.
Issue. I don't remember it looking any different. So I feel like their styles are pretty similar. But
yeah, this one is a little more illustrative. Like it feels a little more cartoony and whimsical.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
For instance, this panel is like completely out of character. Like that.
Yeah, like his face.
Doesn't he look like the Grinch instead of Swamp Thing?
Kind of.
Looks like something.
Yeah, and he's also molting.
He's
so mad that little hairs are flying off him.
So the second issue, right, is the issue I was talking about before,
right,
where him and Abby are going through the swamp, and she keeps it. You could tell like it's bothering him that she's still referring to him as Alec, and he's came to terms with it, but he realizes the rest of the world, or at least the person he feels most closest to, doesn't really feel like
get what
it's
he's
different.
going
Yeah. So I thought that issue was great, showing that, yeah, he feels like he moved on. You're right. He buried the bones and was like, I'm done with this. But still inside, like, he's like, I'm not that person anymore. Like, you should just let that go. And then she's like, oh, I thought you made you mad. He runs away, right? He does something.
Yeah,
he takes off.
Like, sulks
goes
away.
off.
Must have been sunset.
Yeah. Every sunset, you're going to find Swamp Thing.
You're lucky you caught me at sunset. I'm walking away.
I gotta go.
Well, this is also the start of, like, we had some inklings in the first volume of Abby falling for a Swamp Thing. And this one, you can tell that she's basically confiding in him everything that she's feeling. And so, that could pay off later in this. We'll let you know. But I think, she wasn't expecting the backlash of Swamp Thing. Like, so I guess I never knew this. Did Abby and Alec Holland know each other, like, as humans very well at all, or did she just meet him as Alec?
No, not at all.
No, they
Swamp
talk
Thing.
about that in this
Yeah,
book.
they first met in the Baltic Mountains in the small town that she lived in because he needed help after he escaped her uncle's castle. And
Okay.
then that's when they first met.
Okay. As Swamp Thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know why does she? Well, I guess you're not gonna go, "Hey, Swamp Thing," like you're gonna be like Alec,
Yeah,
like what's up? Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Because at that point in time, Swamp Thing thought he was Alec Holland still, right?
Mhm, sure did.
Okay.
Well, and at that time they didn't even explore that. That was issue 3, I think. Maybe 3. And yeah, they weren't even exploring that. Like Swamp Thing still didn't know what he was. He didn't even think. But at the same time, I don't know why we're going back to the first series, but anyway, so issue 1, after issue 1, issue 2, his body is, or he's kidnapped by Anton Arcane, and they fly him to the Baltic Mountains, to his castle,
Okay.
where he basically takes on the form of Swamp Thing using magic, and then Alec Holland is turned into a human.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then Swamp Thing realizes he's doing this for evil reasons and whatnot. And so Swamp Thing breaks the curse and he turns back into Swamp Thing. And then Arcane has this intense passion to kill him.
Garrett, I was right.
What?
Yelled at me. First issue is Abby keeps calling him Alec, and he runs away, and then that's when he starts having the daydreams. And then at the end of the issue is him burying the bones. The second issue is where she feels... What's up?
That's the burial right there.
Yeah, that's chapter 1,
Yeah,
right? Go a couple pages before that.
that's the first page.
That's fine.
Boom, roasted.
I just looked at mine. I got a different copy, or what's going on here?
Well, sorry.
No, keep going.
1980s gotcha, I guess.
It flashes back.
Put it on the cover.
Yeah, it might flash back,
Right
but
there.
it starts with the burial.
No, you said she was in issue 2, so...
What? She's not in issue 2?
No, but the issue 2 is... So in issue 2, she sees Matt. She's like, oh, what's happening here? And he shows her the house, and he says, I got a new job.
Oh, before she even meets up with Swamp Thing.
No, she meets Swamp Thing the first
she's,
issue.
She's sitting with Swampy right
So
there.
Swamp Thing departs and he follows
Right.
his ghost.
And then she
Alec
goes,
Holland.
"Well, we haven't
and
gotten
then
there
she
yet."
goes
We
home.
took
Yeah,
a
we're in
little
issue 2.
sidebar.
Oh, you're right. In issue 1, he does yell at her, "Don't call me Alec."
Yeah. So that's issue 1, and then he goes off and daydreams and buries his bones. Very angry man, but well, I guess Swamp Thing. But I would be too. Like if you were some, and I mean that's the thing about this series is like,
I like how he's punching a tree.
well, I mean,
It just seems so hilarious.
technically it's
he says
himself.
ouch afterwards?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. You think that would hurt? Ow. I'm so strong.
Self-harm.
Well, I mean, possibly that's probably why he's doing it, trying to hurt himself. Doesn't really believe in himself anymore. So I thought that issue was great about going back to the first issue here about showing like the whole thing about him trying to move on, and at the end of the issue, Alex, go to the last page here. The last page of that issue is him burying it and walking off into the sunset, as we see. Actually, no, it's raining. So, and then you see like, oh, it is a sunset and it's raining. So,
It's raining and it's sunset.
Somehow.
but I think that's putting
No
it to
clouds.
rest, right? Putting the whole thing to rest. I'm not that guy anymore. Moving on, right? Later on, and then the next issue starts with him being like, "Hey, you can call me Alec." So passed it pretty fast, and he's okay with it.
And I feel like after all the crap that Swamp Thing's been through, you should just be appreciative of your friends calling you anything.
Right. Instead
It's
of
like-
green mush or like...
It's like, dude, she's talking to
Yeah.
you and not freaking out. How about you don't yell at her, being like, "That's not my name," and be like, "All right, well, oh, Jesus Christ."
I just
Live in the swamp
I just
then.
think of the ting ting. That's not my name.
But in all fairness, he had a 2-page barely monologue where he's like, "Okay, I'm not Alec Holland. I'm cool with it. Like I've confided in myself that I'm not Alec Holland." And then first thing I said is,
You're reminded.
"Alec, hey Alec, I gotta tell you something." "Oh, I'm not Alec." Like,
Yeah, I get
oh
that.
shit, I guess I have to be Alec.
So, second issue, we get reintroduced to her husband.
Have to be.
He got a new house, and she doesn't know how. How are we going to afford this? She's, "Hey, I got a new job." Shows up at the job. What's it called, John? Place?
Oh, I have it right here. It is the
It's like something recorporation.
Yes, it
Black
is.
Water, Black River.
Blackstone, is it? Oh, I have the note right here.
It's
Boy,
some-
is this embarrassing.
It's something recorporation.
Yeah.
A couple more pages there, Alex.
Yep.
So, anyways, it's something Recorporation.
Here, Black River
Blackwater.
Recorporation.
Black River.
Is it Black River or Blackwater?
Black River.
Did you say Blackwater?
Sure does.
Oh, snap.
Typo.
Does it really? Show me.
Yeah, no. This is my typing, not the comic.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I was probably thinking of some
Okay.
government conspiracy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Dear Blackwater.
Well, I thought, holy shit, holy crap, we mind blown, but never mind, it was you.
You run out with thinking you have a collector's item.
Right. Misprint.
Give me your keys, we're leaving.
Like the president potato chip.
You come back in. I need the keys.
You just hear go, shit.
Black River Recorporation. Well, she walks in. She feels dirty. She smells something. She tries to recall, like, what is this? I know this smell, right?
She smells something.
Doesn't she?
She does.
Saying, yeah. I feel creeped out. I feel,
It's kind of like
Something's
that
wrong.
uncomfortable feeling if a fly's on you. Which isn't the issue start out with, or not supposed to start with her
she's
going
digging
there.
her skin
But she have a
out, though, in the
nightmare
beginning.
right before that?
Well, it's not a nightmare. That's
no,
reality.
that's this
Oh,
flashing
right.
back. Yeah. It's like it basically starts with like her in the shower, and it's flashing back to like it's going
book.
back and forth in time. Also,
like
I think
all those bugs and mosquitoes.
I think in that
even
issue,
get
Swamp
creeps.
Thing is noticing a lot of bugs and stuff like that. He's like, "What's going on here?" But anyways, she goes in, sees these people, very creepy. Is that a Stephen Bissett issue, drawn? Very creepy eyes. One person can't move their face. It says that she had a stroke, but I'm pretty sure that's from coming back from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels weird. She says, "I got to go back to the house." He's like, "All right."
Question. So,
Coffee. What's a coffee? The coffee thing I didn't understand. She's like, she feels weird. Get her a coffee. When has anybody ever said, "Hey, I feel a little woozy"? Oh, get this girl a coffee. Like water.
Hydrated. Yeah, true.
hydrate, or maybe to wake you up a little bit. Question for you. So, does she see that these people aren't human?
For
Or
a
is that
split second, she sees it. And
Yeah,
that's
it's
why
like
she's
flashes.
freaked out.
Okay, okay. So,
So she knows something's not right.
She sees flashes of dead people. She sees dead people. She's a
Sixth
little,
Sense?
Hey, no spoilers.
Such a good movie.
And that's probably from her arcane blood, right? The bloodline, the part of the rot. And she said, "Whoa, what's going on here?"
Whoa, spoiler! I didn't know that.
What do you mean?
Besides before the show.
We're getting into
I'm
it.
kidding. Taking it all in, guys.
If you want to know more about that, I mean, she's a big part of Scott Snyder's run. So if you can go there, I might be a big part of this run. I'm not there yet. No spoilers. So she sees them and she's like, "What's going on?" I think in the issue, does she go to the library then in that issue, Alex? Takes off to the library. I'm going to still go. To the library.
Yeah.
She goes to the library and makes some.
No, it's after she and Matt go home.
Oh yeah, buddy,
have
we've skipped the
good night.
creepiest part of this issue. They go back home. She's like in and out. She doesn't really know what's going on. I'm not sure if that's
Almost like she's drugged.
yeah, maybe that coffee shouldn't drink it. That's not Splenda. That's
It probably wasn't coffee. It was probably devil juice.
Yeah,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, that's not coffee. Maybe that's why they say coffee because they can't say water because they're like, "What's in here? It looks different." Make it coffee. We can put whatever we want in it.
We have no pure water.
It's not going to change.
It's not going to change.
Yeah, that's not Splenda. And she's in and out, and
Well, they have intercourse.
they have what she says later on in the book. She says, "Oh, you talking about sex?" They're talking about sex, baby. And,
What's that you're saying?
we learn. I'm going to skip a little bit forward because you're not going to get the context unless I do. We learn that Matt is not Matt. It's her uncle.
Bum, bum, bum.
So we have some incest going on in this book. Forced incest. Also, I would consider that's rape, right? Because you don't know who he is.
definitely.
It surely
It's
is.
rape,
I mean,
it's forced incest. So
The
you're,
coffee is a different form of like swamp roofie. So
Yeah. is it those tubulars?
tubers.
John, did you say this is the first issue without the comic code?
Yep, this is the DC kick the code for this.
So they said, let's kick the code, and we're going to go full on to the other end.
Let's
Force
talk about
incest,
sex.
rape. Like, let's go full on of dead people. I think this issue, for me at least, like the rest of them, not that the rest of them weren't, the rest of them were all horror, I think, but it almost was like horror in a way that is like
PG-13.
yeah, like a Gremlins, right? Like Gremlins. It's not super scary, but if you're a kid, maybe it's scary. But like for our ages now,
Seems
it's
more like
like,
supernatural stuff.
yeah.
later in
And
the
then
book.
this issue, I was like, now we're getting fucking creepy.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
really terrifying.
Now it's horror in a sense that it's even like creepy in a way that's real. right? Because we have these scenarios in which it's no longer, like Alex said, no longer about the supernatural, really. Even though, I mean, that's still there, but obviously, like,
But it's
all the
gotten
stuff
into
that
more
happens to her
real
here.
terms.
Yeah, now this scene is horror that can really happen in real life. So, like, that scene was creepy. And then we move on. She goes to the library. She's like, I got to figure out about these people I saw and try to look up their names.
Well, so she remembers a name from one of the girls named Sally Parks.
Yes. And so she goes to the library. For some reason, has to lie to the librarian. I'm not sure why. It says, hey, I'm researching things for I work at a place with autistic kids. I got to research them. She's like, oh, over there. I don't know why she can't just be like, hey, where's your psychology books?
Well, I think it's just all the crap she's been through. Because remember, like, if you take the issue truly into context, every single issue that Abby's been in has been absolute hell. So I'm sure even just going to the library, she's like play it cool, lie.
She might be in on it. I don't know.
Who's trying to fuck with me now?
Yeah.
Like, she's like, people aren't who I think they are. That might not be a librarian. That could be a vampire for all I know.
I say that every day.
She doesn't like loud sounds. Is that werewolf? I'm not sure. And she goes and says, we're psychology books. Psychology, and she mixed it up with something else. What was it? Psychiatry or something? Sociology? I don't know.
Like that.
Abby doesn't know the
Physiology.
difference. I'm not sure why. Didn't go to school. And so she's like, psychology's over there. And looks up these history documents, basically, and like where Sally Parks, who she is, what she did, and that she died. She got shot right in the head. Pretty sure you died from that, right, Alex? Right between the eyes?
You don't necessarily have to die from it, though.
What do you mean?
If you hit the brain just right, you won't die.
Through right in between the eyes.
Yeah.
That's death every time.
No.
And it depends on the angle. I mean, if it's
I'm
going
saying-
square,
Well, and
you're dead.
if it
goes
if it
like
bounces off your skull
45
in one
degree
direction or another, maybe not.
Well, I mean-
I heard one guy got a railroad tie stuck in his ear.
Yeah, and I was going to say that's a real one too, where you got a rail metal thing through your brain. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
hey, Tyler from Fight
It's-
Club shoots himself in the mouth and he doesn't die.
Well, a bullet will blow out the back of your head, so I think you're dead. And she
just shot out half his mouth.
Then she like has an internal kind of freak out moment in the library. Be quiet, she's saying. I got to keep it go down. Can't draw attention to myself. Has a freak out being like, they're dead. And she realizes what she saw, right? And she goes back into her house.
Yes.
And here comes Matt. Hey, I got some guests here. She's like, whoa, I'm not ready for the guests. I got to go to the store. And I'm like, hey, why are you so nervous? We're okay. We'll make do with what we have. And, whoa.
Well, I think she actually took a nap first.
Oh, she took a nap. Well,
She's trying to take a nap,
as you do when you figure out you see
And-
dead people, you want to take a nap real quick.
and then she's being haunted by the bugs, these horrific-looking things.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
that's
then when she wakes up,
probably residue from that coffee. But
then she goes to run down the stairs to leave and runs into Matt and his homies.
I don't know about you, but if I figure this shit out, I'm not going to go take a nap at my house, especially if I'm really tired. Go rent a motel room or something. Like, get out of town.
Go sleep in the swamp.
Yeah.
Sleep in that library, for Christ's sake. Like, go to the bathroom and sleep in the stool.
They're
in the,
sleep in
in the stall. In the stall.
That's
In the
disgusting.
Shit. Do it.
well, you can tell she's just so uncomfortable. She can't. Like
Well,
she's
she's in the shit
I know
now.
she's not even comfortable in her own skin. Like she's like naked and like I would just like how would
Well,
you
and she's
you would be
losing-
so alert? It'd be like not trying to fall asleep in like Nightmare on Elm Street. You're like,
I don't-
fuck, I can't.
Like, this isn't my... I love Alan Moore. Watchmen's one of my favorite books, right? Grant Morrison has recently said on... I don't know recently said, but he has an issue with Alan Moore, right? He doesn't like him. They don't like each other. But he said that Grant Morrison said that Alan Moore writes characters to fulfill plot and not really let them do stuff like that you would normally do. Like, in that scenario, I feel like she went back to the house because she had to in order for her to meet them and then go to hell, rather than be like, hey, I should probably get out of fucking town.
It's
Yeah.
clearly not a safe place.
No,
That's
like,
a good call.
It makes no sense for her to go back home. So that, for me, after hearing Grant Morrison's interview, I read that and I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. I know what he's talking about now. Like, there's no way, especially for like what you're saying, John, she's been through shit. Like, she's seen it. At this point, when you got confirmation beforehand, get out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Like,
no
she's
matter
not
where she
staying.
goes, there's always trouble finding her. So why wouldn't you just go home? I mean,
Why go home? You know it's there.
Why
At least
go
try to
home?
run. You tell me, Alex, if you knew at your house that they were all like taken over by something, you go back home, you wouldn't go try to take out of town? Leave?
If I know they're monsters, I'm their nightmare.
But it's like Eddie Murphy's bit on The Exorcist. He's like, when the house says get out, you get out. Like, why would you? Yeah, why would you go home?
Yeah.
And go find Swamp Thing.
Hey, is anybody back in the day as a kid, high school, middle school, college too? I didn't go sleep till late. I was a late sleeper, night owl. I think they call it,
that's
right?
What they call it. I'm a late sleeper.
You tell those young whippersnappers.
Was it night owl?
Pretty
Still-
late sleeper.
Still pretty a night owl. But I would fall asleep to the radio.
Oh, yikes, dude.
Garrett, that does something that over the
White noise.
sky. What do you call that?
Radio frequency?
That's radio.
Radio
frequency.
waves.
Yeah, radio waves. AM radio, by the way, and a show called Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, and they talk about supernatural stuff. And to your point, it's a joke by Eddie Murphy, but they used to have on Fridays, people could just call in and like tell them like stuff that was happening to them. And one guy was like, Art, I'm in this house. There's ghosts all over the place. And like he went through on the story about how they're like torturing basically in this house. Like, you know, like it was a nightmare for this guy. He's like, Art, what should I do? And he goes, I don't know. I get out of the house. I don't want to. He goes, would you, Art? And he goes, yeah, I don't live with any ghosts. And it's a perfect encapsulation of this right here. Like, why go back?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going back to zombies.
Well, but here, think about this though. The day before, they were living in this shitbox motel. Was it a motel or apartment?
It was one of those motels that you drive by and you can see all the doors, and you're like,
all
"There's
the doors are open."
And as a comedian Bill Burr says, like he doesn't like those because he's like, they're right behind that door.
Yeah.
Like it's 2 feet, not even 2 feet, 6 inches of wood, and you're in the room.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what they were in. They were like in shithole motels and like probably got bed bugs. But she's like, maybe it's the kind of glamour that all of a sudden she's got this big house. Big house. She's like, yeah, I'm going to stay in the big house. You know,
So I got a
the
question.
house that I wasn't comfortable with yesterday, but today I'm going to go back.
So now in book 1, when the Monkey King is at the Lawson,
Elysian Fields.
the Elysian Fields,
I forgot about the monkey.
Swampy can actually feel that something's wrong.
Yeah.
Why can't he feel something's wrong with her? I realize plot progression is Swampy doesn't know what's
I
going
believe
on.
he's being distracted in some way.
By himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
What's
losing
Swampy doing
Inner
by himself?
turmoil right now.
He's burying his bones.
He's not focused yet.
That's not a
He gets
joke.
focused in a second here, but we'll talk about that in a second.
That's not to the last issue, John.
But anyway, she goes back to the house. They said, hey, the resurrected or recorporation people. Oh, I just got what that meant.
Yeah.
Corporation,
Yeah. Isn't that great?
like corpse,
Corpse.
Recorpse.
Putting back together.
They Arcane walks in and says, "Hey, you figured it out? I'm your uncle," and which is a panel. He grabs her and says, "Say uncle," and
See that part at first because I did not know it was Anton. I was like, that was so bad.
It's
I mean, it
terrifying.
pays off later, but like, that was another like scene that I like laughed at. Say uncle. Like,
I did not laugh at that page because this page is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, but like when it pops up, I'm like, really? That's your worst thing? Say uncle. Like,
well, that's him being like, "Hey," because she's wondering, like
Who are you?
she's trying to figure it out, and that's just confirmation what she feared.
right.
And then, then she's like frozen in fear because she's trying to think back. Did I have sex with this guy? Yeah, I did.
Fuck
and
my
she's
uncle.
and she's like, oh god. And then, oh buddy, he sends her right to hell, or at least you see her go to underneath the floor, ghost style, and you think you don't know what's happening for sure. Later on, he says she went to hell, but you know she's not going to be in a happy place. Should have went to that motel. Better than hell.
So it looks like Swampy does get a suggestion that something is going on, though. Is that at the end of the issue, you see Swamp Thing goes to pick up this bird, wondering is that bird? The bird looks dead, but it's moving like it's alive. To find out there's bugs in it.
Well, so what we find out in the next issue, unless they take a break, I can't remember. But we find out that when Arcane kind of it's in what is it, Halo of Flies?
Yes,
or whatever.
yes. Halo Flies is the next issue.
Yeah. So we find out that Arcane's presence in establishing presence like radiates,
Corrupts
does it
things.
say 200 miles or something from Homa?
Yes,
And so I think Swamp Thing's already seeing like the beginnings of that with that dead bird, and so that's.
But so Arcane showing up, and I mean, I guess I'm thinking of things as once Arcane showed up and actually made more of a presence known that it would have happened. I guess maybe I'm seeing things instantaneously Swamp Thing sees the bird, that is when the presence is known. But I'm seeing it after I already know who it is, and I think that's what's maybe throwing me off.
I think it's one of those situations of like when the bad guy finally like reveals himself, and that's when the shit really goes down. Where before he's incognito, his powers aren't building up. Now he's revealed himself, and he's really coming to a head.
Oh, I see. So as Matt, he's using powers, but not the rot powers.
It might also be like when he sends her to hell. That must be like when he's like, oh, something's happening because it's affecting these different
I
worlds.
suppose it's not necessarily cosmic, but it's a big enough force that
it's affecting the the green, the rot, all that shit.
And he's already tapped into like he's created these zombies, brought them back to life, all this stuff. So his actions are making a bigger ripples.
So now, as the rot, is he a master, the master of rot?
No, that's a ridiculous name. Why would anyone call him that?
Well, no,
No,
but shut up.
He's the rot thing.
He's
Rot Master.
But I'm just
J.
like I'm looking at this first page of issue 3, Halo Flies, and it talks about this cat thinks a good place to sit is on the kid. This dog is attacking his mistress, his master.
Yeah.
There's other things that these people think this is a good idea to eat this dead cow or whatever the ridiculous things are. That's his powers. He rots.
He's corrupting everything around him.
Yeah,
Okay.
everywhere he goes.
You know what I like about actually the way you guys are bringing up these titles for these issues? They don't do that anymore. Like each issue is a different title. Usually it's
Each issue has like 3 titles.
Usually
Like Part 3 Nightmare, something stupid.
what this?
No, I'm not saying
Now,
this.
but I'm saying it's always part 1, part 2, part 3, rather than like a TV show. Like each episode has a different title, and I enjoy that about this because, in a way, it sets you up for what you're going to be expecting. Halo of Flies is a great title to be like, okay, like I know what that means from what I just read. Like, what to expect.
Just to back up a little bit for the this book, or before we move on to Halo of Flies. So when when Abby is confronted with her uncle and he's pulling her hair back and all these zombies are coming and they're going to do unspeakable things to her body. So we know that's the end of the story. But how this book begins, Abby is stripped off all her clothes. They're strewn about the house. She's lying in a ball on the kitchen floor. This is how the book starts. There's a potato scrubber in the foreground. She's in the background. There's pools of blood on the kitchen floor. She feels so violated and disgusted at knowing her uncle has been inhabiting her husband that she's scrubbed her body to try to clean off all of the filth and decay.
And that's why she's bleeding, because she's like scrubbed herself.
Yeah, she scrubbed herself raw. It's it's terrifying.
That's yikes.
You talking about potatoes?
Potatoes?
Tubulars?
Tubulars.
Didn't know potatoes were a good scrubber, but you never know.
Potatoes.
Alex, how's the next issue start?
These zombies are all hanging around Abby. And is this supposed to be Arcane, that really fucked up thing? Is that part of him going through hell?
Isn't this a flashback of him?
He's already been, he's dead. He's been dead, came back, and it's that golden fly in book 1.
Yeah.
Or, book 1.
It's a big monster fly. Yeah.
Okay. And so then that's a lot of what we're getting right now is that flashback, and then we get into...
I think that's a cool payoff, because the last time we did see Matt in Volume 1 was him getting that car crash. So you're like, okay, that's the end of his story. Then it was kind of, you didn't think about it when he shows up in this volume. You're like, oh, okay, he's back, I guess. I guess he survived that. And then out of nowhere, like, yeah.
I remember that guy was so nervous in the book 1, and now all of a sudden he's all confident. That's not it.
Oh, dude, and he has those creepy smiles all the time. I'm like, yikes.
When we're getting to just see the expansive ripples of Arcane coming back to town.
Oh.
So in Arkham Asylum, some of the crazies, like the Joker no longer laughing, is just comatose in a drooling state.
So this issue specifically, and later on there's a different issue also, but like this issue I thought had some great panel working and just basically panels themselves, the art within the panels. Like that snow picture right there that you have. I love that picture. And there's actually a lot of, and I think, I want to say, I do think that for that winter special that Tom King did last year, there's a lot that he takes from this issue, especially that setting, because it looked very similar. Like the color palette was almost exactly the same. Like that blue with the snow and the way the snow looks. I remember it exactly looking like that in that winter special. For me, it was like a cool thing to be like, oh, cool. This is what. And actually, reading this book specifically, there's a lot of things I saw from being like a Swamp Thing guy that didn't start till later. Seeing all these people that obviously have read this and be like, okay, I'm going to take this. This could be my story. So like I was reading this and I saw basically where Scott Snyder was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to do that. And where Tom King was like, oh, that looks like, let's go back. Let's nod back to that.
This, yeah.
So I thought that was just cool. I was like, oh, cool. Like I see where it's coming from now. Go back history lessons a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it is, that art is just amazing. You can't get anything better than that. And like those one page or sometimes there's some double pages. It's very cool to see Swamp Thing kind of in the foreground of whatever you're seeing. And man, this issue really, and like there's so much you're excited for in this issue because this is the true first showdown between Arcane's return and Swamp Thing. Like he didn't know that he was alive. I mean, he's figuring it out, but like this is like the meeting of good versus evil for sure.
Does Arcane being in Matt's body deteriorate part of Matt's body? Because I'm looking at this picture of I'll show it to you, where there's bubbles and there's like grossness coming out of his face. I was wondering if Arcane, not necessarily losing control, but just in his presence, again, corrupts everything. I suppose it makes sense that he would destroy his host that he's now living in.
Yeah.
Well, you can see later, like there's even parts where there's like skin flapping off his mouth and things like that.
Well, and then I suppose once he starts, he's almost switching Matt out of being looking like Matt. He wants to look like, he's making himself be him, right, I suppose.
Yeah, and then we will talk about this in subsequent issues, but once Arcane finally makes his presence known, and once I'm spoiling it. I'm spoiling a spoiler.
I think you're telling us something from.
We're gonna see it later on.
Okay.
Damn.
We find out what happens to Matt's body. Dang it all.
So then all these other things that had been corrupted, the dog, the cat, the other people, are actually on their way to come to Arcane, aren't they? To assist him in fighting Swamp Thing, or just to take over, is it Homa?
Homa, yep.
Homa.
It's that age-old tale of like ultimate evil establishes its minions and everyone flocks to it. Like, didn't they do that in The Stand and like everything? Right?
That way they can like radiate out from like one episode.
Then they have an army of the undead.
Yeah.
So in this issue, Swamp Thing meets up with Arcane and Arcane throws something at him. I don't know what it is. At first I thought, if you look at that panel, I thought Swamp Thing was doing a drop kick, but I guess he's getting something thrown at him.
Where are you at? So Swampy gets to the house.
Goes to the house
and finds
we
Abby.
reveal finally what we assumed happened. Like we saw her go through the floor, but we weren't sure that she's dead. He's like, how long has she been dead? And Arcane just laughing and laughing and laughing.
And you can just see Swamp Thing's getting he's wounded and then he's getting pissed. Like you killed the person that he loves. And Arcane is just relishing every single moment of it. And what you told us in the backstory of why Arcane wants to kill Swamp Thing, I'm like, you went to all this? Mm-hmm. Like, just because you didn't get Swamp Thing's powers, you fucked your niece and you murdered her and you had her raped by zombies? Like, what?
I think the interesting thing is that when Swamp Thing is leaving the house and he's talking to Arcane, he goes, Arcane says to him, That's not even her. That's a hoax that I made up for you. Go ahead and rip her head off. Then the realization is, no, this really is her.
Can you imagine? Like, he's testing and be like, hey. And I guarantee you, if Swamp Thing were like, oh, okay, and did it, he just would have fucking laughed. Man, like basically these two issues, not like he doesn't care which. You can tell how evil he is because, like, Abby's his blood. Like, that's his niece. And he's willing to kill her just to torture Swamp Thing. And like the amount of stuff in those two issues that he does to like try to get at Swamp Thing and like he doesn't even try to attack him for a while. He's just like trying to fuck with him. And he's like, and that specific part, like he's willing to let him rip his niece's body apart just to laugh at Swamp Thing if he would have done it. Like he just would have been like, hey, fooled you. Like that actually is her. And he actually laughs about other. He goes, yeah, it is her. Yeah. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
It's pure evil.
One thing that I think is really cool, Alex, you were mentioning like the evil radiating and all these things being affected. Well, in a bunch of interviews I've read, Moore talks about how he felt very much that this Swamp Thing continuity was in the same world as the other, Batman books and everything else. It lives in that DC universe in real time. And I thought it was really cool that throughout a couple of these books, he takes kind of a beat to show the Monitor up in space, and then you have the Harbinger and Monitor like watching on, and they can't stop watching. Like they're in awe of the terror that's happening.
Is that the name of the team, or is that the name of the two people that are there? Is the Monitor?
Yeah.
Who's always the guy who's watching the screen?
And the Harbinger is the
Is the
gal
girl?
who's with him.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Do they? That was a part too where I was like, are we gonna get more of them later on?
Yep, we should do. Well, we just see them in one more issue. They kind of check in. But also, speaking of that evil radiating, we also get to see Arkham Asylum, which is pretty rad. So Alan Moore gets to work in Etrigan again. He gets to work in the Joker, Jason Woodrue, and we see the Joker in Arkham Asylum.
Oh, that was Floronic Man.
Yeah, Floronic Man. And like they're affected by the evil. Like the Joker stopped laughing. Like how crazy
that is nuts.
Moore was like, oh yeah, I finally get to write the Joker.
That was kind of a terrifying scene, like drooling and
the next issue here, which I think I'm looking through it right now. Continue on from the last issue. Panel work in this issue is fantastic. We have Swamp Thing being like, well, she's dead now, and then Arcane still floating above him, like torturing him. You see, she isn't just dead; she's damn damned to hell. And realizing then that he did not only kill his niece, he made sure she was never going to be happy in the afterlife and sent her to hell. And Arcane makes his head turn to fly, Swamp Thing, and run, Holland, run, encumbered your stupid, pointless burden. There's no rock to hide you, no beacon of incorruptible goddess to light your way. And then we cut to, like you said, the Harbinger. And the next panel here, we get no need for running, and that's finally when he's like, okay, well, done with this. There's no more time to run, and you should have not come here. He said, this is my place of power, and you realize that Swamp Thing brought him to where Swamp Thing's going to thrive.
Doing him the whole time.
That's what we call
the old switcheroo.
A little trick. Didn't get that one, huh? Too busy focused on torturing Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing's like, hey, now we're in my place of power.
Well, that was like a cool metaphor, like the whole time that Arcane is like bothering him like a fly. He's flying right next to him, just taunting him constantly, but doesn't realize like he's getting fucked over.
And I love you can see Arcane's insecurities because he's like, wait. Where are you going?
Don't leave me.
I'm not done bullying you.
I'm evil.
And he punches him in the gut, and he's like, oh, you hurt me. And you realize this. He's like, you don't have magic? How can you be doing this? And you realize it's an elemental. And he says, it's our first battle. And then we get some, which I think was a pretty cool fight sequence, art-wise. This Swamp Thing basically cleans house, takes him out.
So you can't see it, but there's this one panel where Swamp Thing is pretty much just like bowling.
This one?
No, it's up on the top of that page that you're looking at, where it's just this big like red streak of Arcane being twirled around.
Yeah.
And even Arcane's face, oh god,
yeah.
this is gonna hurt.
This fight scene I find very comical because there's so many like swipes or like action lines, and when I see Swamp Thing like spinning him in a circle, all I think of is like whoop 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 whoop.
Oh god!
Basically demolishes Arcane, which we remember this is Matt's body, so he's fucking up Matt's body and Arcane. He's like. Matt's like, we both deserve it, just as long as I get to send you where you sent my wife, and basically fights him from within and takes back over. Mm-hmm. Sends Arcane back below, and then he was gone, and there was only Matt, and Matt not looking good. Matt got fucked up by a Swamp Thing. You realize, like, oh, he's like, hey, Alec. He's like, Arcane gone, but you're hurt. These wounds are open. He's like, I'm dying. It's for the best after what I let him do. And Swamp Thing's like, can't you repair yourself? Matt's like, hey, you have your powers, repair yourself. He's like, no, I'm going to repair Abby. So he goes over to her to repair her body, bring her back to life. Meanwhile, Swamp Thing drops off Matt's body in the middle of the road.
So what I find really funny about this is, why would Matt Cable think that he could possibly bring his wife back?
Yeah, I mean, we do learn that he brings back the vessel, but there's no soul anymore because the soul's been damned to hell. Yeah. And she's not there. Obviously, the body's, like we see, she starts like drooling, so the body system's still working, but there's nothing there.
And Matt Cable's like a bag of bones. That his body has been pulverized by a car accident, by a Swamp Thing fight.
Like Swamp Thing should have been like, hold up a second, I'm going to go to hell in here. I'm going to go to hell here in a second and get that soul back. So, like, don't worry about it. Heal yourself first. And then probably, if you had enough power to heal back yourself, Matt, I get you anything, you would get more power again.
And so if he would have healed himself, he could have healed her.
He could have healed two people with one, but no. He deserves to die, he thinks. So
I love there's that emotional split panel where you see Arcane's face and Matt Cable's face. And like you were saying, it's the internal struggle that Matt is kind of getting a foothold of his control of his own body. But there's that one line where he says, just as long as I get to send you where you sent my wife, I could just picture Swamp Thing off the side like, I'd pump the brakes on the wife thing. Like, you have been just a terrible human being for the past 6 years. Yeah. I don't know if you should call her your wife anymore.
Yeah, maybe only call her Abby.
By the way, he's like, when future something's going to be like, when she's like, a little spoilers, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but later she's like, I really didn't love him anymore anyways, towards the end. Something's like, ooh, fuck, dude, he sacrificed his life for you. Anyway,
but is it good enough after making your life a hell?
Imagine being Swamp Thing and being like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Matt made that sacrifice, but what am I going to turn on Abby?
I think for Matt, though, like basically when he comes back into consciousness, like the only stimuli he has is, well, I guess I could save Abby.
Yeah.
If he had a choice, I bet he would go right to the bottle and be like, yeah, fuck you guys.
If he knew everyone was going to be okay, absolutely.
Yeah, he'd be like, I'm done with this.
But he doesn't die. Swamp Thing drops off his body in the middle of the road, which is the safest place to put a body. A man
in front of a cop car.
A man that can probably travel. If you got him to the road, bring him to a hospital, but no. Cop car comes by and picks him up, brings him to the hospital. And that's when Swamp Thing realizes the vessel's alive, but the soul's still damned. Gotta go to hell. BRB. He's going to go to hell and find Abby Arcane. So there's a beautiful panel. They walk off into the sunset.
Of course, like normal.
There's a lot of sunsets in the swamp. You don't know. The way the
weird thing about this swamp, it amazes me how many open spaces there are in the Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Where you can the swamp.
To be fair, I've been playing a lot of Red Dead. In the swamp, there's a lot of open places.
There is.
I mean, there's crocs, but they're open places.
Well, I've seen what Swampy does.
Hey,
to
they
crocs,
can suck in your horses.
Will be alligators, not crocodiles.
Oh, that's right, alligators. Also, the way that the colors look on that page, that is accurate. If you ever heard about the sunlight in the swamp gas in the right way, and it kind of looks like a UFO, it looks beautiful. So that is accurate of the swamp. Swamp Thing walking off into the distance. That's the only way he thinks.
There's some tender little moments for, I guess, Swamp Thing nerds. But so there was a line in the very first issue of Swamp Thing where he says, if tears could come, they would. And, it's this very poignant, sad monster moment, But in this issue, he says the tears come. I close my eyes. And it's like, oh, he's hit rock bottom. Now he's actually crying.
Oh, yeah, now... You thought he had it worse when he figured out he actually was a plant. Now he realized he has no reason to live. So, not only that, he...
for a book that should be kind of more of a serious, deep inside thoughts. No, this is...
To be fair...
I'm a plant. I have nothing else to live for.
To be fair, while reading it, it is very deep, and you get into... That's the magic, I think, of this book, and Alan Moore kind of in general, but... While you're reading it, you're into it. The lyrical style kind of brings you into it. And it brings you into this kind of flow, which is why when we get to that issue, I think it kind of brings you out of it. But when you're in it, these moments, which seem cheesy, work. They work and you get invested in it. But when you're talking about it, when we're actually talking about it here in the room, it's kind of funny the way these situations work out. But like you were saying, he basically, Abby's gone, and he hits rock bottom. He's crying. The only friend he probably would have maybe had, he beat the shit out of, and he's almost dead. Nothing else in this guy's life. He doesn't want to be the Avatar of the Green. He just buried Alex's bones, so there's no chance of that. Who would have said he could have probably brought back Alex's bones, like, hey, heal this guy instead. But it does end.
Freddy go ahead and beat the shit out of him.
It does end pretty beautifully with them going off to the sunset, which, I mean, we're making fun of because, like, a lot of issues end that way, or not even issues. That's his MO. But it is beautiful.
Something just dawned on me here. I think that walking in this perpetual walking into the sunset final panel is so fitting. I feel like Swamp Thing's probably walking away and he's just like, I gotta get to bed early because the shit's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah.
I gotta work hard tomorrow.
Yet again. I got no friends.
You know what I find weird?
Got a dead body in my arms.
I find weird that he's going back home, and I put that in quotations, but isn't all of Earth his home?
It sure is. So technically, he just should stop.
Yeah,
moving.
why is he...
Dude, he's chasing the sunset. He's too slow, so
Why-
it goes down.
I guarantee you, and I don't know this for sure, maybe, John, I don't know if you... Alan Moore, I bet. I mean, that's a classic like hero trope. Is like they walk off into the sunset. That's how you end everything, right? And I wonder if Alan Moore has that kind of,
He's walking off into the sunset like a mock.
maybe he's in love with those kind of stories where that's what he like loves, and so he's like, this is the hero aspect of Swamp Thing I'm going to bring into this, that he walks off into the sunset.
Well, maybe,
Well,
but
and it's
maybe it's
also
more like irony because like
I know,
every
I
time
think-
a hero walks in the sunset,
Right.
it's because they did something cool.
It's a happy ending.
This is
Yeah.
It's a happy
like
ending, yeah.
horrible ending. And he's
Absolutely.
walking off into the sunset.
That would make sense. And I mean, that's the way I would think Alan Moore would do it. It would be like, hey, look how like they walk into the sunset to be like, hey, I done good for today, but he fucked up, or like you said, tears came, baby.
Yeah. Well,
The
and
guy-
also it's a nod to the original series because the very first issue he
Yeah.
walks off into the not so much a sunset, but that's what's funny in comparison to those first issues is he walks off into like a smaller subtle sunset, and this one is like the biggest sunset.
That might be a nuke. We don't know. But also, like in book one, I'm not sure what issue it was, but that moment when he fully like is okay with him being Swamp Thing, and he does that kind of that classical Swamp Thing
Oh,
picture.
what's that
That's
movie? I can't
Platoon?
remember. Yeah,
Platoon.
Platoon. The
That's
Platoon image.
It's in front of the sun, so maybe this is supposed to be like, it's kind of throwing back to that to being like that's a Swamp Thing thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and also to be fair, that is his life. Like that sun's probably keeping him alive.
Yeah.
I had a question about the tears. Is that also like food for him? Like he cries and then he absorbs it.
Them,
It's like
probably a little bit of salty nutrients.
a little. What do you call it? Like a little fountain. Like it keeps recycling the water.
Like a cheese fountain.
Photosynthesis?
No, like a fountain in the water.
fondue?
It's got a pump, like a fake fountain.
I thought you meant like a
Oh.
chocolate fountain at a wedding.
Well, maybe, possibly. Does that recycle the chocolate? Does
I
go back
believe
up
it
top?
does.
I just think it's weird that he's got tear ducts for that. Like he should just shouldn't even be right here. It should just be like oozing water from his whole
You
side
just
of his
start
face.
sweating.
Well, I mean, he is a Swamp Thing that thinks
Hey,
he's a
water
man.
rises to the top when you're
You remember
playing.
that first issue? The plants that mimic like memories can have
Lungs
memories. So he thinks that he is a dude. So he created tear ducts.
He has lungs that don't.
He has
That's
lungs
close. He's got-
that don't work.
Tubulars.
He's
Yeah.
got eyes. So he's crying, baby.
He's got teeth too. Again, that doesn't make any.
The
sense.
next,
Yeah, I said that's weird when he yells.
They're
with
just
his
really
teeth.
sharp petals.
Phil Hester says that he rationalizes that as they're little tiny pebbles.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Which again, I'm like, why has he got pebbles? in
Yeah,
his
why does he
mouth?
got rocks in his mouth?
the next issue here is Pogs, right?
Nope.
Nope,
Go to hell.
not quite yet.
Annual number 2.
Oh, it is.
Really? It says at the end of this, the last page, it says Pog. Oh, the annual.
Technically, it should be the annual if we want to keep with continuity.
Yeah, in the book, in the trade, it is
Right,
the
well,
annual.
because the
but
next
in the
Swamp
issues,
Thing
it was
issue
not.
is Pog.
Yeah, and here's
Because it says next issue Pog and the
I
But
don't recall if I mentioned this at the beginning, but here's one thing that I found slightly disappointing. Recently, in the past, I've always read the individual comics.
Yeah.
So you can read the narrative of Abby going to hell, Swamp Thing bringing her back, which we'll get to. But reading the trade paperback, oh boy, those two stories really take you out of the game. It's kind of a bummer.
You know, if I had my trade powers, I'd have been like, maybe just don't put this in there.
Just move it to the back.
Or the very far back.
It's like, that would have been
Or start
better.
out with it. Because, like, then when you're into the mood of the story, you're not like, oh, this.
And I think for like super Swamp Thing nerds, all of the stories add a ton of extra info, like behind the scenes kind of stuff. So it's really valuable and fun in that way. But for someone who's casually reading, they're just like, what is going on?
Yeah. We went from alcohol to like cocaine, like real quick.
And then a Disney movie.
Yeah.
The next issue is him going to hell. And this is the annual. We're looking from the trade here. This issue was the issue where I was like, especially the part where he's like, oh, let me connect with the green. And he kind of like, don't get lost in it. Beyond the green, beyond the world, the quick and the warm, beyond life itself. And he's like, don't get lost in it. Remember who you are. That's a big part of Scott's run. And I feel like this issue specifically, Scott was like, yeah, let's explore that more, which is good or bad. As Scott loves to do is explain everything, which I think kind of ruins the mystique of it. But even still, like, I thought that was a cool issue to be like, there's more behind this Swamp Thing than just, and later on we kind of get that with that Alex issue that we kind of get that there's been more than just, he's not just a one-off thing. There's like a legacy.
There's always been a Swamp Thing.
There's like some sort of other worlds and there's other forces behind this.
Did they ever touch back on that about the many Swamp Things of the past?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
In fact, that like in subsequent issues, Alan Moore just blows all that out of the water.
Oh,
Like,
really?
He develops the whole backstory. He really kicks
cool.
it into gear.
And Charles sold it in his run. He
Sure
brought
did.
them all back. So
cool.
Was
really
that
cool
New
development.
52 at the last half after Snyder left?
what's up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Soleil's run is awesome. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's really good.
And then Jesus Saez, I
Yeah.
think. And then who else did the art? Kano did some art?
Yeah,
right?
Kano did some art. It that run, it's I think. Well, it first off sold me on Charles Soule, and then, but like you were saying, it touches back on that history. It's more focused on characters, and I think that kind of gets back to like when I read that, I was like, okay, this is what I like about Swamp Thing. And reading this here, which is what I was going to say, like there's so many aspects of this character in which you can choose to delve into, but the main focus, at least of this book, is Swamp Thing and Abby, like that relationship and like what he would do for her. And at the end, we'll see something happens where they basically they get together. But that whole thing for me was like, that was the great overarching arc of this whole thing, was seeing Swamp Thing be like, coming to terms with who he is, putting his, demons to rest, but also like figuring out that Abby was okay with him, and then he loses her. Like the one person that understands finally,
Right.
he's like, oh, and but he loves her so much, he's like, I'm going to go to hell and get her. Like, I'm not going to stay, like, he could have just been like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? I can't go to hell. And he's like, no, I can. Yeah, I'm gonna. And then even when he gets down there and we're talking, he meets Deadman down there and he says, hey, what's up, Boston? And Boston's like, hey.
I ran into you one
I know
time.
you. I know you. He's like, I don't remember you. And he's like, I was invisible.
Goes back to Challengers of the Unknown number 82.
Oh.
I believe 1976 or 4. I don't know.
So Deadman says, Boston's like, hey, you probably don't remember me though because I was invisible and what do you call it? Inhabiting other people's bodies, right? So that's probably why. But Boston knows him. He's like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, I can bring you to, heaven, or not heaven, but the waiting room for heaven. And what do they call it? The just died or just arrived?
Yeah.
Just arrived section. And the place where you wait until they get your car ready for heaven. And he's like, I'll bring you here. We'll see if she's here. And look around. Nobody's fucking here. And then some lady calls up and is like, hey, where's she's crying because she can't find her kid. And she was like, I was driving. And he was, what was scary about this part? So all the time, especially today, I was driving home with my son. And I gave him a chicken strip because he was hungry already. And we were going to eat at home, but he's hungry. So I gave it to him, and then he was making like a weird noise. So I turned back to be like, hey, what's going on back there? Turns out he was just making a weird noise with his mouth. But, for a second, I'm like, oh, I think he's choking.
Yeah. Ooh.
But then when she's like, I just turned around to tell him, hey, be quiet. And I was like, dude, she fucking died in an intersection. And that's what always, frightens me when I look back real quick. I was like, oh, okay, I got to look for a second. And I got to go back because, that could happen. Like, it takes a second just to take your eyes off the road. So it was funny because I thought of that today when I did that, and I look back, and then in this book I read about it, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus!"
Yeah.
But then her son shows up, and she's happy, and they move on, And
Did you
Boston,
find out he didn't die as fast as she did?
yeah, Boston was like, hey, I waited around for him and, brought him here and everything's cool. So he's like, this is all I know. We can go to the other place, but I can only bring you so far.
So why can Dead Man only be in the just dead zone?
Because he's in the veil between the living and the dead. He can't fully
he's not-
pass over.
I see.
Yeah, so
he's in the in-between.
He's always haunting for the
Right.
most part. He's
Well,
not.
he's not haunting, but so
Well, he's a
there's a
ghost,
lot of
isn't
backstory. Like
Yeah, he's like
Ram
Patrick
Nakusha. Okay, yeah, sure.
wait, in Roadhouse?
Yeah, and
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
He's like Patrick Swayze.
Now I'm just
right?
picturing Dead Man around what's her face making the little clay pots.
Demi Moore. Right, actually they did have recently, I think it was like last year, they had that mini Dead Man series was a romance book. So could have happened in there, you don't know.
Yeah, true.
He goes, I can only bring you so far. And where do they go next?
Well, then the Phantom Stranger shows up.
They
The more dead, the more dead zone.
They're gonna go to heaven actually, like the full in. And he's like, I'm gonna bring you to the gates, basically. And Phantom Stranger shows up and says, hey, I gotta bring you all the way in. And him and Boston exchange some words. Hey, what's up, buddy?
up,
I've been seeing
bro?
you for a while. And he's like, hey, I've been up and down, in and out, living and dead. And Phantom Stranger said, all right, that's cool.
Yeah, Dead Man's like, the only time I see people is when one person comes, usually like there's a bunch more that come with them.
Seems to me like Dead Man, at least in that scenario right there, is acting like an usher. Brings them in, adios, see ya. And then here comes Phantom Stranger. Here's your guide for your heaven. And brings Swamp Thing in. He's like, let's look around, see what we got. We gotta go talk to God. What was her name?
Ram Nakusha.
Let's go talk to her and see if they know where Abby is.
All right.
Yeah. And he's like, well, there's many heavens.
Who
Just
gives
question-
Dead Man
I just question
the-
whether or not you're right or not.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know how to pronounce it, but I recognize the words.
I've read a lot of Dead Man.
They said, okay, we got to explore. There's different, religions basically. So there's different kind of planes of heaven, but they don't find it,
They just run into Etrigan.
which is funny. They were into. Is that? I thought that's in hell when they run into him.
Yeah.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they run into
because we run
Alec.
into
Oh, they run into the Spectre.
Oh, Alec. They run into Alec, right?
Yeah.
And then they have that moment being
Yeah.
like, hey, man, like, thanks for putting me to rest. I finally got to come up here.
You want to come see Linda?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry. That really broke my heart because he's like, no. But he wants to so badly. Oh, it's so sad.
Which is funny because he remembers her, right? Like, he has Alex's memories, but he realizes in that moment, and I think it kind of, it's what he's struggling with in this whole 7 issues that we read, is that he's struggling with, like,
Is he or is he not Alec Holland?
yeah, I know. It's like, imagine if you had basically a clone, right? If there's a clone Garrett running around, but he looks
There
like
is.
you, he has your memories, right? But I mean, like in this moment right now, we cloned you, right?
Yep.
100%. They have your memories, they have everything, but he's not you, right? You go on through life. You have relationships with your girlfriend, your mom and dad, your brother. They know who
BFF.
you are. He can definitely that clone can definitely BFF. The show he could take place for you here.
I'd kill him.
But that's what I mean. Like, we would have been able to tell the difference, but to him, he wouldn't know the difference either. And there's one day somebody says, hey, you're actually a clone, you're not the real one. How do you deal with that? Because to you, to your memories, you are that person.
You know how we know is that this Gary spells it Garry. That other one would only have one R.
Have you seen Sam Rockwell's
Dude,
movie
that's
Moon?
the correct
Yeah.
way to do it.
Holy moly.
And I mean, that's an aspect here is like, do you want to go see Linda? And he's struggling with it because he's like, I have memories and feelings of what that was, but I know logically I'm not that person. So like, why am I going to go over there like to break my heart when I know I'm not Alec? Like, it makes no sense to me to do that.
And also imagine that conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, it's me.
On the carcass of your...
Yeah. I'm exactly the same as this guy. I have his memories and everything. We kind of split off a little bit ago, but I'm not actually him, as you can see.
Wanted to
Look a little different now. But
Last time you had some potatoes.
he's like, so, technically, I am you. I am him. I mean,
I am you.
but you know what I mean, though. Like, really, if you had a clone, why would he could replace you and nobody would know? He wouldn't know until you were like, "Hey, you're not me." And that's what happened in the first trade. He found out, like, "Hey, you're not Alec." And for him,
You're not who you think you are.
it's an identity crisis, being like, yeah, you don't know who you aren't who you think you are, and so that moment was great because for him to be like, no, I'm not going to go do it.
Don't they eventually retcon this way down the line and just make him Alec again? Or do they never do that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, we had this discussion. I believe in
I remember what the first. Yeah.
It's and the crappy thing, and I feel like Swamp Thing was just a subject of like circumstance, but there's the Brightest Day, and then there's the Darkest Night, and then there's the Swamp Thing New 52 books, and each one of those tried to do their own spin on the regeneration or origins of Swamp Thing. So if you read them in succession, it is the biggest shit show ever. Continuity is garbage. It doesn't make sense. So then if you're a Swamp Thing fan and you read all those and then it leads into New 52, you're just like, this is going to be garbage. it really was like Alec Holland is human and he's working in a lumber yard. It's give it a break. Like,
go back to being a scientist.
Well, yeah, or something. Like, I don't know. That's just to me a really weak connection. Like, he's the
like Scott Snyder didn't read like
he looks
any previous trades and was like, well, I'm pretty sure I'll call him Swamp Thing.
Yeah. So like he would.
I believe it's
if he's doing landscaping. That'd be pretty rad.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that makes sense.
I believe it's at the end of Scott's run where he's just like, he is actually Alec.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another moment where he's like, "Whoa, I am him actually." After all this time, I thought I wasn't him. Which I think it really. So the interesting part for me for that character is this talk about like, is he Alec? Like, what makes you who you are, right? It's your memories. Like, what do you consider to be like your soul? Like, it's your memories, how you act, and how people know you. But if somebody cloned you and they have all that stuff, are they not you? Like, if you made a clone of Garrett right now and they killed off the real Garrett, who's to tell any different? Like, he would move on life. And actually, there's a story. Stephen King short story that's similar to that. Like they invent teleportation, but actually what it does is like destroy your body and then rebuilds you here. Mm-hmm. And so you die, and then it just basically makes a clone of you, and people are like, hey, here I am. Mm-hmm. It has all the memories up to that point, so why wouldn't it be you?
But something died.
Yeah, but you actually died, and your clone lives on, and like, hey, here I am.
Right.
And nobody knows.
So it's almost like in the continuity of time in the universe, all is right.
Yeah, like you're still there.
You don't exist.
You actually went from Boston to Los Angeles in 2 seconds. Yeah. You know, for the person waiting for Los Angeles, like, oh, here he is. But they don't know that in Boston you actually died and this is actually a clone.
How would not to go on a crazy tangent, but how would you be okay with that? Obviously, you wouldn't know. You would cease to exist. But like in the grand scheme of things, your legend, for lack of better words, is a thing that will play out. What is your main purpose? There has to be some guiding force that is. Well, no, there isn't, right? Because it's just a clone. That is just weird to think about.
But you wouldn't think about it like in that scenario, especially with like the Swamp Thing. Like that's why they can go back and be like, "Oh, he is Alec," because like, "Oh, how are you supposed to tell that?" Like he has those memories. So why wouldn't he be? Like if originally in this Alan Moore run, if they were like, and that's how it was for a while. It was like he's just Alec, and then like, no, you're not. It's easy because what makes him Alec? Yeah. Is it the memories? Is it how he reacts to things? But if it was 100% clone, would I still say, like, if, let's say, 50 years from now, they perfect cloning and you can clone people. If they were to make a clone of me, who's to say that guy doesn't have the same rights I do and doesn't have the right to be like, oh, yeah, no, I am you. Like, and who's going to believe who's the real one? We'll be exactly identical. And who am I to say that he's not me? Like 100% me and couldn't replace me just because I know he's a clone, but it has my memories. There's no difference.
The weird thing about your clone theory is why are these clones hanging out in the same cities that we live in? Why are they hanging out in our group? Why didn't we get rid of his clone? Why didn't it go somewhere else? Hang out with Corey somewhere else. Why is your clone with us doing the show?
Well, it's the same kind of
up next at 11.
It's the same kind of question, right? With probably technology that's more likely than cloning. Actually,
you didn't miss anything. We're still talking about
clones. We're talking when I was here. What contract?
Clones.
It probably is the same type of scenario. I'm not sure which one will come first, but one of them's coming, maybe. Like if they took your consciousness and put it into some sort of robot, right? Who's to say that's not Garrett living on? Even though it really is just like electrical signals to be like, hey, I act like Garrett, and like, you know what I mean? Like Garrett
was that
lives
like
on
Robot
forever.
Man, or is there actually human inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like the question of RoboCop, right? He dies, and they like bring him back into a robot to be like, hey, is he still Murphy? And guess what? At the end, he says he is.
Mhm.
That's some nice shooting, kid. What's your name?
Hold it right there.
Perfect.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
So they leave heaven. He's like, well, I didn't want to think it was actually this, but I guess she is in hell, like Arcane said. I don't know why it's not the first place he checks when he told him that.
So anyway, back to the book.
So maybe he thought Arcane was bluffing again to mess with him. So there they go to hell, and then like Garrett mentioned earlier, Etrigan's down there. Tells his
but not just yet.
Phantom
No.
Stranger. I don't know.
Phantom
Spectre.
Stranger takes needs to get permission for Swamp Thing to enter hell, so they go to what's called Pandemonium, which cracks me up because I expected wrestlers with folding chairs. Just joking. But then like through a slit of light, all of a sudden this massive specter shows up.
Yeah.
They're like in his eyeball.
Yeah, it's so
like,
cool.
He opens up
Spectre.
his eye. He is. That would make sense that he's kind of between heaven and hell because he's the all-time judge. Like he judges who's good and who's bad.
Worthy.
So that was a pretty cool moment. And that's crazy that he's kind of like the last step. I mean, I don't know we get to Etrigan after that, but it's cool that Spectre's still like, hey, I'll get you there.
Well, he's the last step in between. So, he's like the toll booth. You got to pay the toll to get past. And he's like, hey, you can't go in there. Why are you going to go in there? We're going to get Abby because she doesn't belong in there. And he's like, who's to say? If she was damned there, then she belongs there. Like, you can't keep bringing people out. Then you're going to make life meaningless if people can come back to life. If you can just take a soul and bring it back to a body. And he mentions being like, well, what about Jim? Yeah, he's like, what about that? And he's like, well, good point.
Yeah.
You can
pass.
And then, okay, but what I love about that is that immediately has you questioning like all of Spectre's convictions.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I can do a turn of phrase and you fold like a deck of cards?
He's like, oh, what about you, though? You're right. If I do it,
all right.
fuck anybody can do it, right?
Loophole.
I am, like Eric just said, the ultimate judge.
We're all
But
going to hell. Here we go.
I am still a person, so... he lets him through, and here you go. Etrigan tells his tales, little rhyming, the rhyming demon, and says, "Where's Abby?" And they go through the back and forth, which lasts a while for him to be like, "Where is she at? Over here?" And like,
right now they check like all kinds of different places in hell.
I always
where
like
did I
how
leave that
Etrigan
Abby?
looks. Like, at least in this style, he always kind of has that less of just a standard yellow demon face. He kind of has more of an animalistic or cat-like features. I really enjoy that in him.
Etrigan was part of a good series in New 52. I forgot what it was called, though.
Demon
Knights.
Demon Knight is excellent. Your Demon
Yeah.
Knights, yeah.
So he's more of a anti-hero on that kind of a hero. But in here, he's the guardian of hell, and he's like, hey, okay, we're going to find Abby. I left her around here somewhere. We found a bunch of demons, or what are these guys?
Yeah,
Devils?
they're all-
Demons?
They're
I
all,
don't know what the hell this thing is.
which one?
Creeps?
The weird big thing with the big tongue that wants the slave guy to lick his hoofs.
It might be Negril, I think.
Lick my hooks.
No, Muddle Crunch.
Yeah, I
There
was
you go.
gonna say he's got some weird.
He's torturing Sunderland, who Swamp Thing remember he killed. So basically, what's rad is Swamp Thing gets down to hell, and it's like a Hall of Fame. It would like come as like Batman's Rogues Gallery. Like everyone in jail's like, "Hey man, you locked me up."
Welcome to hell.
Yeah,
put
Swamp
me
Thing
here.
sent
me to hell.
Swamp Thing's like, hey, I didn't kill you before.
Yeah.
Hey, it's cool. Come down here, guys. I'm going to be leaving. You guys can't leave, obviously. You're getting licked by,
You're licking someone's feet.
what do you say, Crunch Bar? Yeah.
Crunch a munch. I like that to
Bunch of
punish
crunches
him.
licking your
Muddle Crunch.
Yeah.
Rips out his tongue again, and even Swamp Thing looks. Holy shit! I can't believe that just happened.
Is this the issue? You know that what you showed me earlier where Swamp Thing had that shocked look in his face? Is that this issue? I forgot.
No, that was McManus's.
Oh, okay.
But this one,
burial.
he covers his mouth after.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Right. That was what I was thinking. I was reading. That's the part that made me laugh. I know Garrett was talking about laughing, but when he covered his mouth, I made me laugh because recently, I don't know where he learned it. Obviously, he's bringing to Swamp Thing. My son, when he's shocked, does that. And
That's adorable.
So when I saw that, it made me laugh because I was like, "This dude reading Swamp Thing?
Yeah.
You got my copy." Obviously, I would let him. You learn some life lessons in this issue, especially the last issue.
That might be a little early. It might be a little early.
One of the coolest parts when they're going through hell and they run into Sunderland, and Sunderland gets his tongue ripped out, and then they run into Arcane, who in the previous issue Swamp Thing killed and sent to hell. And there's this amazing scene. Arcane's body is just rotting away in this mountain of corpses and bugs and flies, and Swamp Thing basically just passes by him asking where Abby is. And then Arcane's like, no, wait, please, before you go. And Swamp Thing turns around and Arcane says, how many years have I been here? And Swamp Thing just goes, since yesterday. And Arcane just loses it because it feels like he's been there for an eternity of being tortured.
Been there for a day.
Oh, it's so crazy.
They find Abby underneath a dog pile of demons. And one of them wants their hair. They're talking about, hey, I need that hair would be good. And very creepy part. She's knocked out still.
This is very disturbing when you see her apparently lifeless body. She's alive, I guess. Would you say?
Yeah.
I mean, that's her spirit in hell.
I think she definitely
looks like it got fondled
knows
a
what's
little
going
bit.
on. Yeah.
Gee, this girl, how does this girl not come back to life and instantly just off herself again?
Right.
Because she'd end up back here again.
It's the worst.
I know,
life.
but
Yeah.
she's been defiled. She's been.
But I love the Swamp Thing. It just busts that demon's face.
Right?
Enough.
Yeah. It's so good.
Swamp Thing, when he means business, he means business. I mean, he could turn to his fist to a trunk of
like the one
a tree trunk.
punch
So
Mm-hmm.
He's like, mahogany.
he's pretty badass in Injustice too. I'll just say that much right now. Then he's like, let me bring Abby back up. Right, Alex?
What?
Brings Abby back to life.
Well, after we do a lot of fighting and a lot of running away.
Etrigan fire blast a lot of
Getting
people.
bitten in the ankle by
Ankle biting.
Arcane.
Yeah. I love.
And Etrigan tells him, just kick him off.
What's beautiful about that is like it just proves Arcane will stop at nothing. Like,
Take me with you.
yeah. Merely a flesh wound.
I know. I was thinking Monty Python the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm like, did Monty
But then you
Python
just
come
watch
after this?
Etrigan kicks him.
Yeah. Gold.
Oh, that's hilarious. The portal's closing. He's like, Arcane, let go. And he's like, I hate you, you scum, kill you, murder. And Etrigan comes by and goes, kicks him in the fucking face. Get back in that pile. Then they.
Back in that pile.
By the way, I don't know why. I found this pretty funny. I felt like in the mood. Swamp Thing and Abby go back to the Earth plane, basically. And she wakes up saying, Alec. She goes, oh, it's freezing. What the hell are we doing out here in the snow? And it's like, well, if you would have known. A second ago, you're pretty hot in hell. So let's not complain about the snow for a second here. He's like, Alec, what's the matter? And he's like, you're crying. Which goes back to that thing. Like, now he's crying because he's happy.
Mm-hmm.
Once again to a sunset in the background, but you don't see the sun in that one.
No, it's already gone down. Do you think he was a little disappointed in that? He's like, Abby, I got. You know what? Never mind.
I didn't make it in time.
Yeah,
I'll wait till tomorrow.
funny?
I'll stick around. I am going to cry, but I'll stick around.
You know what's funny?
But I'll stick around.
Don't you need to walk? No,
No.
it's over. It's already gone.
I'm looking at the.
You've already ruined my day.
It's the worst.
I'm looking
day
at the
ever.
last.
Got bit in the ankle because of you.
Oh well, he also got punted in the face. So that panel right there, you're looking at, John. That's
Yeah.
on your website. A scan.
Yeah,
Is that from the issue?
it is. Yeah, Tatiana Wood painted.
That coloring
Wow.
and then the coloring in that trade are different, and then the coloring in this digital edition are different. So we've got three different coloring.
Still has a nice gradient in the
Yeah.
print, though.
So
Yours is way brighter.
yours
at
is
the
more
foreground.
saturated. Mine is lighter, and John's is just a different palette color of colors. Which
Is
I
that
think,
from the original issue?
It is. Yeah, sure is.
which actually,
course,
since
that
you
looks
mentioned
the
it
best.
last time, John, that they recolored this for the trade. This book, I noticed it a lot more. Like a lot of the colors are bold, where I feel like, especially, I'm going to confirm it by looking at that panel that it's not really that bold. A lot of the stuff in here is really like super blue.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's probably because they were behind the curve, like getting copies of these comics.
That's the thing.
They sent out, but they never thought maybe we should keep one and put it in like a vault that's like
a lot of
dehydrated.
comics you look back and they don't have any of the stuff's archived. They don't have any of the original paintings. They don't have a lot of, and so they have to go back and repaint it every time. And it's like scan it.
I know. It's like when you make a copy for yourself.
Make a copy.
Next issue is the one I was talking about before. Now we get some.
Woof.
We get some. What are they called? Pogs.
Pogs.
Is that what they
Those
get
little
the name?
circle things that you used to pile up and slam your slammer on and see how many flip over?
Now, if you had a Pog with a Pog on it, that's Pog squared, and that equals an issue here where we get crazy. Some Pogs come from outer space. Outer space?
Yes.
And land on the planet. And
let's get some background on
John,
this.
explain this issue to me.
Okay, so this yet again, this is another issue where everyone pumps the brakes. There is a different artist on this book. Let me go back and find out.
Sean McManus.
Is it? Yes, it is. Sean McManus comes back again to give the creative team a breather. It's a humongous change of pace. All of a sudden, there's these cute little cartoon critters from space and little spacesuits inhabiting the swamp, and they're looking for a new home. Their previous planet was overrun by kind of savages. They were killing everything. It's kind of a commentary on Earth and human society on another planet. So yeah, it's kind of a tale of Earth and finding your home, which Swamp Thing can identify with. And also, so the deal with the Pog kind of scenario is this issue is actually kind of an homage to the Pog creator, or no, Pogo comic book, and that was originally by Walt Kelly. So it's kind of an homage to Walt Kelly's Pogo book. And if you go back and look at those, the characters are pretty identical. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think I was kind of saying to this group before we even started the show, it reminded me very much of like Power Rangers mixed with like Looney Tunes. Because you know what happens in this issue to that poor yellow Pog. He bites it.
It's so sad too. Because he's a little alligator alien, and he's in the swamp, and he sees big alligators, and he's like, "Hey guys, you're one of me, crunch."
Want to? Oh fuck!
But what's so interesting is these aliens leave their planet because, for lack of better words, they're persecuted and they're being killed off for food and all this, and they want to survive. So they go to this other planet, and this alien who sees what looks like the exact same animal as him, it ends up killing him. So these poor animals can't trust anything. Like, it's just so sad.
It's very macabre. Like, it's like, because, you know, this is, again, a very different shift in tone. Kind of gets back to that more PG-13 horror-esque thing. It's not even horror. I mean, it's cartoon characters, basically. But then it gets dark, like, really quick because of that scene there. And
I think it's a one-shot. If I read this without this being in the middle of it, I would have enjoyed it. But I was invested in the other story. And to get this little break, which you see later on why, because the artist needed some time. For me, I was just like, I want to get past this to get to the... I want to see some more. What happens? Swamp Thing's crying. I want to see why he's crying for.
I've got two complaints. One, these alligators were just doing what would have came naturally. This little thing came into their land. They're doing what they were going to do. Secondly, there's no blood. This gator would have eaten this little dude.
Who's to say that they bleed normally?
Yeah, you don't think...
No, I'm not saying that he would have been bloody. I'm saying that this little dude is small enough. He's about the size of an arm.
He would have been a little appetizer.
He would have been, yeah. They would have. The one gator would have eaten him right away. There wouldn't have been this sharing. No food frenzy. They would have gone.
Do you know how he tastes?
Swallowed.
Doesn't taste good.
Yeah, maybe it's an alien food. They didn't know if they wanted to take a whole bite.
You know, John, I've been
I want to share it.
thinking about for a while getting some ink. Looking at your tattoos here, you have Swamp Thing on your arms here. I think, but I can't figure out what to put on my body, and I think I just figured out some Pogs.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, put the
it
yellow
right on my
dead
arm?
body on yours. The yellow Pog.
It's a tale a cautionary tale. Just because it looks like you doesn't mean it's friendly.
That's
Or you could put the 4 live ones on your arm and then the 1 dead one on your ass.
What's up?
And Garrett in the background pouring a little Diet Coke on the ground for his girl Trina, the Yellow Ranger.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about how the Yellow Power Ranger Trini Kwan died in a car crash. Just happens
actress
that
passed away.
The actress. Yeah.
Are you saying that my ass crack is an alligator because it's right by that yellow pog, and we don't need that kind of commentary.
Or a ravine.
I'm going to say it again. That pog was green. His suit was green.
Oh,
you guys are
green.
colorblind.
Next issue.
No, it's not.
The pog is green. His suit is green.
Does anybody have any other pog commentary?
No.
I mean,
This is a tough issue for me to read.
Besides
What color is that, buddy?
the little alligator pog being named Bartle, which is
What color was
the
he
best
in?
name.
The cover was pretty sweet. I do like the cover. Swamp Thing about to
Can't get it, apparently.
rip open this alligator's mouth. If you seen Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla does that to his
He's
buddy.
green.
So,
His pog is green.
by the way,
It always makes me cringe when I see
his
those
outfit
scenes.
was.
Like,
Well,
so
I mean,
there's
body
two
is yellow,
scenes that
so
always
it's-
make me cringe in like monster movies. One is
You're
when
wrong.
King
You're
Kong rips open the gator's mouth and
Yeah.
it pops the jaw open. The
oh,
other,
yeah. That's
the other,
yeah.
the other one is there was I think it was like a Conan the Barbarian, or maybe it was just Schwarzenegger Conan. But there's a scene. It's been done a ton of times, but there's a scene where the protagonist loses his sword, and the bad guy comes in, and he goes down to hack, and the good guy just grabs the blade.
With his bare hand.
And then the bad guy pulls the blade out of his hand. Those two scenes always make me cringe. Oh,
Yikes. Yeah, it's like a paper cut.
The King Kong one after
kind of
he-
like a paper cut.
yeah.
the King
Well,
Kong
a little
one
more
after
brutal.
he breaks open his
The
jaw. He also moves
his
it back
tongue
and forth real quick, being like, "Oh fuck, I broke this shit."
Oh, it's so brutal.
What was that? That's from the 2003 one?
No, original,
No, the original. Yeah.
Oh.
black and white, baby.
Okay.
The
I was
clay
thinking
shit
the other one with
flops.
Jack Black where he breaks the jaw and then bites the tongue off.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
So they Swamp Thing helps out the Pogs, and adios. They go back in their turtle shell, back to space.
Turtle
By the way,
power.
I like how that turtle. There's no. It's not even a spaceship. It's literally just a space turtle.
It's so great, right? And at one point, I think there's little puffs of cloud, as if there's a combustible
Yeah.
engine happening there.
It is pretty big though. If you see Swamp Thing next to it, that thing is huge.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is surprising because they're not that big, and they need all that room. So you don't know. Next issue here, issues 33, Swamp Thing. The cover, a little homage right there to House of Secrets,
92? Yep.
92. So first appearance of Swamp Thing, and we go on to find Abby. She doesn't know if she's dreaming or not, and she meets Cain and Abel. And they tell her, hey, you got to pick one of these, the House of Mystery or the House of Secrets. She doesn't like Cain. She's like, oh, this guy's kind of creepy. Let me go see the House of Secrets. They go in, and she gets a little flashback. We get a little throwback to the original origin, right? With Alex Olsen. And we see that origin story, basically, and she kind of sees it play out, and she's comes out of it being like, that's not what happened. That's Alec Holland. And you kind of get this thing with nice little meta, like throwback being like, hey, we changed this. And now it actually is part of continuity. And it's like this weird thing. Who knows what happened? Like, did we mess with this? And I thought it was a cool issue. It is a little throwbacky and it does show you that, like, I like how when it goes back to show that old story, it is that kind of mimic that old style, how it originally looked.
Fans of Wednesday Comics might realize that Cain and Abel were in the last book we reviewed, which was Sandman Volume 1. So,
And for Sandman fans, they may be interested also that Cain and Abel actually mentioned that Abby is in The Dreaming, which is really
I did
cool.
remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Is there ever an issue that shows when she chooses the mystery side of it?
No, but that'd be so cool.
Because I was just looking at this now, like I wish I could see what the other side of this book would have been,
Yeah.
and to show both sides. It'd be more. I mean, it's great the way it is.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see what happens if she had chosen.
But I wonder if people would
Cain.
ever actually pick mystery because that's Cain, right? Cain is
Yep.
mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the more like silver tongued one. So I bet people
sure
are
is.
always just like, yeah, how about fucking not?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna go to the.
This is like one of my favorite. Again, this is kind of like pumping the brakes, but more develops the heck out of the Swamp Thing history.
Yeah.
He brings up the origins of the Swamp Things. He brings all this stuff. And also there's this wonderful thing where the whole premise of this issue is, can you keep a secret? Or like this wonderful thing of secrets,
Right.
And it's so awesome that she like learns all this stuff, and that's it. Like you cannot take your secrets with you.
And then she forgets them.
Yeah.
So let's say if she would have gotten away from Cain,
Yeah.
would she have actually remembered it, or regardless when she woke up?
Perhaps.
Much like I do when I wake up after a dream, I can't recall what I've dreamt.
Yeah.
That I love the brutal kill that Cain does to Abel. Bashes his face in with a rock.
Yeah. Again.
Just, you killed him.
Yeah.
He'll be back tomorrow. He'll be back tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
See, that's the thing. I don't know enough about the House of Secrets, even though I have a ton of issues. I don't know enough about House of Secrets and House of Mysteries. If, regardless of Cain had killed Abel again, I don't think she would have been able to carry that secret out of the house, right? I feel like that's kind of works or not.
Well,
I don't know.
See, that's what I didn't understand because Cain tells her that if you had chosen mysteries is something you can take
can
with
wander,
you, and you
yeah.
can consistently wander
Yeah,
and
yeah.
wonder about it. But then when I thought if she would have escaped Cain and Abel before he had killed Abel, would she have kept the secret and known the secret when she woke up?
Right.
Or, regardless of the fact, would she still have forgotten?
Well, I think maybe because that's what happens is Abel gets killed, and Abel is the caretaker of the House of Secrets, so he no longer has the power to keep the secret with her.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, I guess regardless, it wouldn't matter unless we had seen another
Right.
second or third issue
Mm-hmm.
of how it works.
Yeah.
So in this issue alone, he's dead, she forgets.
Mm-hmm.
She knows there's something, but she can't remember it.
So that's the last issue, which is the most disappointing of this whole book. I turned that page and we got a poster gallery, and I was like, "What? There's not more?"
Yeah, I know. I thought that was the end.
Oh no, we have one more issue. Never mind.
Oh, come
Sorry,
on.
we do.
The issue. Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
Sorry, hold on a second.
I like how you're that was the last issue, and I'm kind of sad. And the whole time he's been prefacing there's one more issue to talk about.
Well, like I said, my memory's not the best. Even though I read this last part today, I forgot that there is something. So I actually was disappointed to be like, "Oh, that's it." And this is the poster gallery, and then here we go. So the issue we've been, like John's been saying, pumping the brakes for, and Abby.
Bumping those brakes, bro.
Now we're rolling downhill, picking up speed
Yeah.
very fast.
You get
No
put, you
seatbelts
get
on
thrown
this
in.
ride.
2 naked people and some potatoes.
Abby goes to the hospital, sees Matt's in a coma, and she feels an ache, but not of mourning. She knew who she wanted to be with. That's a tough break for Matt.
I like that. Oh, he's dying. That sucks. How you doing?
Dude, she has to have some sort of relief. Like, I don't care how he tried to help her. He's made her life a living hell from
Well, she
go.
does say, yes, she feels very guilty, felt relieved, frightened, angry, all those things. But the separate shades of her grief have merged like vivid model clays crushed together in a single mauve brown bruise. Bruises fade eventually.
Well, I think, she also says, she had, even before Matt died, she had stopped falling in love with him.
Yeah, she says that later
Right.
on here.
So
but,
it's out of, more commitment, I think, more than actual
but
love.
like John was saying, we kind of saw that in book 1 a little bit. Not the greatest guy, even though he did end up basically putting himself in the coma to save her body.
But failed.
Not enough.
I guess he did save her body.
Sorry, I was laughing at butt fail.
Well,
Not yet, John, not yet.
what did he do to save her body though? Or did he just restart
He
all
healed
the
her body.
organs?
Healed her body, but not her spirit.
Yeah.
But what was wrong with her? Well, I guess she'd been raped.
Basically, he
and
put her.
beaten and
Yeah, and she put her into coma. Basically,
okay.
there was nothing there. So, cut to the next page. When she says, "I want to be with somebody else," and it's her and Swampy.
Swamp Thing's like, me?
I like the Swamp Thing. Is it me? Hopefully, it's me.
Sitting
course
here-
you damn fool.
for this moment all my life.
And I'm a plant.
This issue is really beautiful, but it's also funny as hell. Because, obviously we all know what sex is. And
Wait, whoa.
I know. I mean, if you read this and this is the first iteration of sex you've heard
This
of,
is how you learn the birds
might have a lot of
from the
dead bodies
bees.
around you. But
We're going to be very confused.
yeah, right. Your
Every
loved
time
one
you
will
see a
have
tree, you're turned
a
on.
super bloody
I start
hole in the
tripping.
middle of their chest. But
So,
I mean, when it starts getting into this book, though, there's so much vivid detail. There's so much God, I can't even fucking dealing with the middle schoolers over here.
I have a question about this page here. Do you see this page here?
Yeah.
So there's a big panel of Swamp sitting next to Abby. By the way, that look he's got on his face, he knows what's coming next.
Yeah.
But there's 2 panels behind that. Are those like what? I don't understand the placement of the panels.
Show me. Let's see.
Like back here, there's 2 panels.
Oh yeah, so it's a spread page. It continues. So,
okay. It's supposed to. Okay, in the digital version, it looks weird that way. But
What ones? Here, I don't know what you're looking
right
at.
here,
this.
Oh, okay.
title page and the one next to it.
So here we go. We get into this issue here. The next page here, they're sitting next to each other. He goes, "Do you mind if I?" She wants to take the flower off Swamp Thing. He goes, "No, please take it."
Mm-hmm.
And the way you look, I think you look best in spring. Swamp Thing getting a little flirty. Swamp Thing.
Hey, wait a sec though. I got an innuendo. When she plucked that flower and put it in her hair, is that the first time he stuck it in her? Hair. Her hair. Jeez, guys.
That's
let me
all the
finish
time.
the
Yeah.
sentence.
So, but you know what's really funny is after all the crap she's been through, to hell and back, literally.
Right.
I do enjoy, like, she goes to see her garbage of a husband, Matt Cable. He's in a coma. She sighs in relief, and then the next we see her in the swamp. It's like summer day, like just hanging out in the swamp. And she even is so relaxed. She's like, "Fuck it, I'm putting a flower in my hair. I don't even care." Like,
by the way, a little behind the scenes here. I like that the whole episode. I was like, Gary, you're being too soft, and then sex comes up, and this guy's peeking all over the place.
Well, dude, do you realize this is a 30-page orgasm? Like it is, 100%.
So here we go next.
That's why there's no code of authority on it.
Alex, can I talk to you for a second? Alex, excuse me. Of course, it's something to do with Matt. And she goes, "Nah, it's to do with me." And basically sends Matt that Alex, and she basically tells him, "Hey, I really don't like him anymore. I like you. Is there someone? Is there someone else that you love? Oh yes, very much. Then you must not torture yourself with pointless guilt. If there's someone you love them, then tell them." She goes, "Well, that's what I'm trying to do." And he's like, "Oh!" His lip is all pluckered up, in his eye there's a twinkle in his eye, and he's like, "You mean me?" And she goes, "Oh, for God's sakes, who else?" For some reason, "Oh, do you mean me?" We get a shot from way up. We see a bird's nest with some little babies, foreshadowing some babies might be being made in a second here.
Spoilers.
But I like on that moment.
What is he giving her pollen or something?
I like on that moment it shows them
come on,
very, as in very small. Like
he's got a thing with bees. Hey, too much. Don't talk about bees.
You're talking about innuendos with a flower in her hair, but talking about pollen.
I guess I just don't understand that shot. Like why have it up there? Usually shots like that are supposed to mean like they're powerless in the situation, but it's just a very weird shot, especially the birds. I don't understand.
Well, to be fair, it looks misleading. It looks like these birds are huge and they're coming to attack them.
So the next page is, "Oh no, I ruined it." Have it. She thinks she ruined it because he's so shocked. First, I wasn't sure. She's like, "Dude, I'm a plant," and she goes,
"Dude, I'm a plant."
She goes,
looks like a plant.
"Oh, you're a plant, for God's sake! How could I ever think you love me?" She goes, deeply, silently, and for many 2 years, she goes, "You never said." "No, I thought I would frighten you, Abby. What do we do now? I've never even kissed you. It would be unpleasant for Abby. We are so different." And he says, "Well, fuck it, I'm going to kiss you." In the background of their kiss, there's the sun again. Obviously, the sun shows life. That's what the sun represents in this whole series. I like the lime, but not as sharp, she says. So his lips are lime, which is very interesting development.
Could you imagine it's like making out with broccoli?
Could he?
No. So here's the
Lime.
thing. My favorite pie in the entire world is key lime pie.
Ooh.
And so when she says it tastes like lime, I was like, oh.
Interested. Give me that pie right now.
Oh.
The question,
Texture, though. The texture.
the question is though, can he change it? He probably can. The taste.
Oh, he absolutely can.
So in a way, is it like lip smackers? Like this guy just puts on a different thing. He's like,
No, but I just assume so. Maybe he has blue Kentucky grass is with how soft. Yeah, blue Kentucky grass, Kentucky bluegrass,
Potatoes?
or maybe it's
Potato
a velvety leaf of a succulent.
Yeah.
Or
but how creepy would it be though? Like, so she gets home from a long day at work, and he goes to give her a kiss, and it's like fragrant and aromatic, like cheap crap cologne, and she's like, "Yeah, not tonight. Like, just chill."
and he switches it to kale quick, and he's like,
kale.
"All right." Then we get a shot for some reason. Raccoon's drinking some water,
Just means they're in nature, man.
Yeah, I think all these shots are just to be like, hey, look, there's animals around. You want to take a walk for all that? Take a walk, and they're holding hands. And he's like, you are human. You need more from... He gets right into it. Mm-hmm. He's like, let's take a walk. We just kiss. He's like, I don't know if you want to be with me, though, because, we can't... There's more than the taste of lime.
So here's the thing. For me,
yeah,
big key lime pie fan. Would I trade love for key lime pie? Perhaps.
You never know.
You are human. You need more from love than the taste of lime. And she goes, you're talking about sex, right?
Yeah, Abby just cuts the bullshit.
Yeah, I know. He's dancing around. I know. You need more than lime. And she's like, hold up a second here. If you're talking about banging around, let's just get to it.
Oh my God.
Why are we jumping around the subject? Which is weird to me. This guy can fight the Avatar, as Alex said, the Rock King.
He can fight the Rot. He can fight Monkey Kings.
But he's like, hey, what about sex? Like,
humana.
And she's like, hey, man, I've been to hell and back. I know you were too, but I've been through the shit. So let's just come right to it because I could die in this next corner. We don't know what's
Someone
happening.
else could come killing for me.
We don't know what's happening over here.
Based on our track record, neither one of us are gonna last.
Let's get this going.
They have a little talk about, hey, well, by the way, fourth panel into this next page. By the way, 2-page, not spread. There's enough panels, but it goes over 2 pages like this. The fourth one over Swamp Thing's face, he's like, no, please, wait here for a moment. He goes down to the water, girls something in his chest, and rips it out and says, oh, you want me to, when am I supposed to eat it? And he's like, yeah. She's like, well, I was kind of weirded out before when we saw that. She threw up.
She's like, is this symbolic?
But I'll eat this now. And then shit gets weird, baby. This is what took so much time. She starts tripping out, and she's like, what's going on here? She's like, this is the way I see the world.
Hold up. I was telling these guys when that scene happened, I busted out laughing because I'm just like, I didn't know that he was getting her into the Swamp Thing zone, but priming her. But
priming her.
But I just thought maybe I thought he was just playing dumb. Hey, this is the closest thing I can get you. Just eating a nice big chunk of me, and hopefully that's it. And then what you're gonna say, Marvin, is it just goes into the. You know what's
not funny. That's not the right word, but
made me laugh.
There's a moment here which I talked about. Grant Morrison and Alan Moore have a beef, but this is a nice and All-Star Superman. Yes, we're talking about All-Star Superman. There's a whole issue where, spoilers for All-Star Superman, which it happens in the first issue. What?
Isn't it issue 3?
It happens in the first issue, but he basically is dying from cancer, right? And he's like, hey, I got a limited time left. I'm going to spend time doing what I love until I die. So in one issue, he wants to have a date with Lois Lane, the last date they'll ever have. And as the date, he gives her his powers, or makes it so they both can share the powers. And they both spend the day being Superman, going to the moon and flying and teaching her how to fly, which reminded me of this too. He's basically let me make us closer by having you experience what I am. And we get 4 to 5 pages of beautiful art, beautiful panel work, and basically them becoming one, right? He's the Avatar. He's touched into the Avatar. He's like, let me bring you into this for a second and feel this. And for her, it is as good as sex. For her, that's it's kind of like Demolition Man for a second here. So
oh God, laser beam sex.
Those words should never be uttered. It's kind of like Demolition Man.
Oh, Sandra Bullock. Oh.
So I thought it was beautiful. To go back to be serious for a second. I thought this next 4 or 5 pages was the beautiful way to show this. Even though we're talking about it they have sex, those 4 and 5 pages are really them connecting on a level that is amazing for this character to show
beyond sex. It's as close and intimate as you can get with one other being. And I agree with you. I think you get lost in that art. It's just so abstract, but there's so much symbolism and holy crap, it's just the craziest trip I've ever seen.
And it kind of changes to a more pencil-y style. The colors are more color pencils, right? It's just beautiful. In those 4 or 5 pages, there was a couple in there, and I think the very last one where they're kind of looking at each other.
Check this out.
Where I was man, I would love to just have that piece of art.
Well, there's so much
fantastic.
I think there was a lot of panels I was staring at that you could see different ways, and it's just like there were so many different interpretations you could take from each panel, and it's some of like the best art storytelling I've ever seen.
So we get that, and after they're done, Abby comes out of it. Her clothes are kind of falling off. I don't know what happened there. She was in the water. He pulls her up and says, does this mean we're going out? Which is the weirdest question to, have that kind of experience. Babe, by the way, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? And he looks at her, gives her a kiss on that sunset, Swamp Thing. And then a bunch of flowers and a bunch more of those things pop out of his back, which makes you think they might be going all night long. And the book ends, or this book 2 ends. Which, that panel's, to be serious, that last panel of them sitting there is beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That looks amazing, yes. John. And the trade, color-wise, it doesn't look as great as that. But, still, it looks, you can tell the original attention and panel, for them to be in the first third there, like the whole composition of that, it's fantastic.
I have to admit, though, the book isn't nearly as bad, and maybe this one of your earlier editions does a better job of the coloring, because the nice thing that you see, at least in the original books, is that those brown streaks, he actually looks like he's made of wood. He's made of other things. It's not all just green, which is nice. It adds more texture and more character to him.
I love in the bottom, or in that last panel, you see a tuber in the bottom right corner, and there's like little flies and 2 butterflies. I feel like as a responsible Swamp Thing, he needs to dispose of that in a safe place. Yep. Because animals are just going to be having nasty hallucinogenic sex with any old animal,
skunk raccoon.
No, it's more like Swamp Thing's going to have some butterflies bothering him, and he's like, "Whoa, it wasn't for you."
little kisses.
He's going to eat all of that.
He's going to walk up to a couple of squirrels, placing hands on each other, like I said, Demolition Man style.
I just imagine like a deer runs and starts humping the leg of Swamp Thing. Get off!
One thing I thought was cool with that, though, did you see there was like a scene where Swamp Thing still looked like Swamp Thing, but he had like human skin or whatever, so he became human, and then there was a scene where Abby becomes a Swamp Thing. Basically, I thought that was really cool too. It might have been a brief half a second, but I still thought that was cool. At least they each get to experience. She is experiencing what Swamp Thing experiences, but I think like physically being like Swamp Thing is way different.
It reminds me of a song. I forget the title of the song and I forget the artist, but
Tears in Heaven.
I think the lyrics go, "Tonight two will become one," and that's what happened definitely in this. They became one person. So, it was a fantastic way to end this. I think, like I said at the by now it's probably been an hour ago. The thing I loved about the whole overarching story in this whole second book was Abby and Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this really establishes them, and at the end there, especially that last panel, is like, I already fell in love with these two together, and I just know from history, if we're going to use history as an example, things might not go so well for Abby in the future, but at least Swamp Thing's there and he'll take care of her. So.
Yeah, that's what's the great thing, that last panel. Like you're saying, you feel like, oh, we got a team here. This is cool. And what's great is it's not just like girlfriend-boyfriend team. She has established that she's a badass. She's been to hell and back. He's a badass. It's like, ooh, this is going to be really fun from here on out.
So, so we get
but
amazing chemistry.
I do question one thing, though. She literally has been to hell and back, but she didn't make it out of hell on her own.
True.
So she's obviously killable.
She's got a lot of power.
She needs assistance.
True.
With litter on,
but her powers only show random occasions.
Watch out.
But when the shit hits the fan, Abby Arcane isn't going to be running for the hills.
No, I know she'll be there in the fight, and she would have been in the fight if she hadn't been.
She fought the Monkey King.
That's right.
That's true.
So don't account.
Like a year ago that I read that.
Don't account that she's fighting the monarchy of the primates. So, fantastic book there. Recommend it.
Can I give a little insider baseball here? So if you own the original copy of this issue of Swamp Thing, so what's really neat is in the back of the book, there's kind of like the letters page. Or actually, no, this is not in the back of the book. It's kind of whatever. There's an editorial called DC's Meanwhile, and it's a letter from Dick Giordano. Now, Alan Moore has only been working on this Swamp Thing book for, a handful of issues. Well, no, that's not true at all. Like, what, 12 now?
Yeah.
15, something like that. But Dick Giordano announces in this section that Alan Moore's Watchmen is in the works, but he hasn't called it The Watchmen. This is what he writes. The first is a proposal from Alan Moore, Swamp Thing scripter, for a maxi series starring the superheroes we recently obtained from Charlton. The idea is gutsy, grittily realistic, and explores aspects of the superhero never really dealt with before. Unfortunately, I cannot really consider it for the Carlton heroes. For one thing, certain aspects of the plot line to do things with and to these characters that would make it difficult for us to use some, if not all of them, after the series was over. So it's kind of cryptic and kind of wordy, but basically he's introducing the concept of Alan Moore's Watchmen. It's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
And from the original concept when they were going to use those characters instead of modifying them for what he eventually did, which is cool. I mean, I think that's for me at least, I love the history of comics. Like, I've read a lot of books and like how it got started, and especially these writers who eventually that they make these works that are masterworks that people are like, okay, the Alan Moores, the Stan Lees, and all these people are like, you see where they come eventually seeing these kind of stories and seeing, like, especially reading this book, I see the Alan Moore that, like, this is what got him those books and like what got him to those places where, like, yeah, do whatever you want, because they gave him Swamp Thing and they were like, and actually there was a cover in here where it said sophisticated suspense, right? And I saw that and I was like, okay, I bet you it was around this kind of point when they were like, we got something here. Like, this is not just, your regular Swamp Thing. We have something here that is really good. And this is like it says sophisticated suspense, but it's saying like, this is a classy work. Like, and eventually later on, Alan Moore would have the kind of staple of being like, it's Alan Moore book coming up, right? But at this point, they were like, hey, this guy writing. I mean, he did work before that, obviously. He did a lot of work in Britain, but.
And what's interesting, too, is the main reason why sophisticated suspense was added to it is because they got rid of the code. But they wanted to make sure people knew, if you are a child, do not pick this book up.
Well, they should just put that one panel of them having sex on the cover.
Yeah, there you go. They should have done that.
Is Swampy the first thing that Alan Moore had written?
No.
No. I'm terrible at remembering the stuff he worked on, but he worked on some big stuff before that, but not like as...
He wrote a lot of stuff in Britain. He wrote for...
2000 AD.
Yeah, and I believe he wrote some of... God, what's that book called? I just had it and I left it. Miracle Man? No. What did he used to call it? Marvel Man.
I think he already did. Yeah. Well, then they had the legal reasons they had to change it. But Toddleman and him worked on that together. Yeah. So that was kind of the link to get to...
Marvel Man was before this, which eventually they changed to Miracle Man, and I think he also might have did some Captain Britain, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
So he was doing some work over there in Britain. I think maybe this is one of his... maybe not the first, but this is like one of the first DC things he did. Okay. And then he moved on to be, Watchmen, and then that got him Killing Joke, V for Vendetta from Hell, and then he moved on, at that point on, and then it's, Alan Moore, once you get past those works. So,
sorry, one more little thing. If you own the original copy, in the letters page, friend Rex Gamble, when he was a kid, wrote in, and he and I have gotten to know each other over the years here, but he told me that when he was a kid, he wrote in, and his letter is in the letters column, and he's from Georgia.
Oh,
that is so cool.
It's so cool.
Small world.
Could you imagine getting in that? You're like, holy crap.
That's in history.
Especially this issue is like pivotal history.
That
Crazy.
is nuts.
Georgia.
Yeah. So hello, Rex.
On my mind.
Oh, gosh. That's all we have for the notes.
You can find that information, these little tidbits, which I love to see, and more about the Swamp Thing. This isn't only about these comic issues. This Swamp Thing, as I say in the ad at the beginning of each show, this thing's phenomenon. It's hot. It's coming back. This character, he doesn't have his own series yet, but he's got a lot of minis, a lot of one-shots. He shows up in a lot of books. RootsOfTheSwampThing.com. Your definitive source for all things Swamp Thing. On Twitter at DCWorldSwampy, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Roots of the Swamp Thing. Also, if you go to his website and you have a WordPress, actually you could do it via email. subscribe to his website via email. You get a nice little email every time he writes a post. That's how we have it there. That's how I see it. I see every time he writes something up, gets sent to me, and I go, okay, let's go read this. So nice, fun little things about Swamp Thing. Some things also, like he said here, retrospectives of being like, here's the work, let me examine this. You can see the original artwork. Fantastic. Roots of Swamp.com, John Boylan, the Guinness Book of World Records record holder for most Swamp Thing memorabilia. Wait a second here. Did they ever make a statue of her eating that and then them,
No, the statue would be really cool though.
Yeah.
But do you know how much that would cost? Like the detail?
Oh God.
You know what they should do, and I'm serious about this. Anybody listening to this that's into VR technology, make that happen. I want to experience that issue in real time. The whole tripping out everything, and I obviously want to be Abby, not Swamp Thing.
Oh my God.
Good luck, my friend.
Wednesday comics.
Wait a sec.
Hold
We're
on a
missing
second.
one thing.
We are actually so.
Sizzle real time, John.
This here
This is real.
Sizzle reel.
is our book club. 605-215-1849 is always the phone number. You can call us for voicemails anytime, but also for the book show. We like to include voicemails. So make sure you call that next time. Do you get any takers on this one? But Wednesday Comics 605 at gmail.com is also where you can send feedback, and we'll talk about it on the show. This Roots, Saga of the Swamp Thing, Book 2 was a recommendation to Alex on Twitter, and he went with it. We put out the same scenario, but I did put it out pretty late last week, where Alex said it right away.
I had been asking for it for a long time.
Alex has been asking for a long time. So today I was, okay, we're going to do the show tonight, kind of thinking about it, catching up with these issues. And then I was like, oh, wait, I got to pick a book. It's my turn. And I'm rolling through the choices. Like, what do I do? Because, the parameters for this have never really been set. The only parameter was, listen, I just do, something that's, something we can talk about, right? It's not just going to be like, oh, let's read the last trade of Batman. Well, actually, that's not a good example because, man
down.
You can talk about Batman. What's a comic book that...
like Watchmen. Well, I mean, that's someone you could talk about. Maybe like Dark Knight Returns or the very popular ones that everybody reads.
I feel like you could talk about that. I just mean
but it's not going to be an ongoing thing. It's not. I mean, this is something that's already been established. Most of the books, like Umbrella Academy, has been written about 10 years ago. Yeah,
like a trade of Deadpool. We're not going to talk about what's to talk about. A lot of it, mostly, you have to experience by reading the jokes. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, what am I going to pick? A lot of choices went through my brain, right? I had told Alex and I think Garrett, maybe just Garrett, one of the two. A while back then, I thought about Wicked and Divine because I used to read it and I wanted to catch up with in trades. Thought about it. I also thought about a newer work. Some of my, what's it called? My Heroes Are Junkies.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about that because me and Alex recently got that book and I thought we could, talk about that, get into it, especially since it's relevant right now. So I went back and forth. I also thought about Criminal because I know Garrett wanted to read Criminal, but I know me and Alex had read it, right? You read?
I want to say he's read My Heroes Are All Junkies.
Yeah, I know. So I went back and forth. I go, what are we going to do? And I looked at some books here and I was like, you know what? Let's do this. I know a piece of work that was critically acclaimed last year. I think it was last year. It might be going into this year a little bit. Actually, it definitely is last year because it's 2019 now. I forgot about that. But it might have been 2017. I think it crossed over.
I bet he forgets the book by the time he goes to tell
I'm
us.
trying to figure it. I can guess. Save my life.
It was critically acclaimed. It's from a writer that I love, but it also is based on a property, so I feel like anybody can get into it, and I feel like there's enough to talk about here. I started reading it in issues. I read the first two, and then I was like, let me wait for this in trade, and I never finished it, so we're going to finish it, talk about it. On the next book club, Garrett, what's it called?
Wednesday Comics, League of Extraordinary Gentlepeople, proudly presents to be read for the next quarter of the next book club. Exit Stage Left, The Snagglepuss Chronicles by Mark Russell. People are talking about this book like it's fantastic. It's one of the best things last year. So I wasn't born when that cartoon came out, right?
So we're gonna read it. It's about Snagglepuss, and he's a lawyer, and You guys are gonna love it.
This sounds awesome.
I have
It
we're
is.
gonna hate it.
He's a Southern lawyer, and he's fighting for civil rights. So I think there's a lot to examine here, based on Snagglepuss himself, but also from the commentary. It is a very not political, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Satire?
Well, kind of, but it really is. It touches on social commentary. Yeah, it's a very social commentary book, and it's very relevant to things going on right now. So I feel like it's gonna be great. And I know there's some people that have read it already that listen to the show, so I think it'd be a nice way to include them also. So X's stage left. He is a playwright, and that's right. No, he's a playwright, and he hooks up. Not hooks up, but he gets a lawyer because he's being accused of being.
That's why he's called Snagglepuss.
Like the McCarthy age, he's being accused of something. I won't give spoilers away, but he's being accused of something and needs to fight back. Just like how back in the day they were accused of being commies, and so.
How many issues is it?
6 issues.
Is it okay?
So there we go. When did we read that by? April.
Yep, April 4th.
First Thursday in April.
I'll look.
Send us your voicemail 605-215-1849. Wednesday Comics 605@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That's
Oh shit, I was right. April 4th. First Thursday.
At Wednesday Comics on Twitter, at Garot2188, at Alex Pastrello, and at Marvin_Saguaro. Once again, at DC World Swampy on Twitter. Facebook.com/Wednesday Comics Podcast. Like the page, share it with your friends. And then while you're at that, go over and like Roots of the Swamp Things page and share that with your friends too. As we told you in this issue, you want to be reading this thing. This Swamp Thing is hot. We got a Scott Snyder and Capullo miniseries coming soon. Teaming up again. I'm excited for the Capullo part. And we have a lot of one-shots with Swamp Thing. And he was in a Halloween special that came out of Walmart.
Yep, sure was.
Justice League Dark he's in right now. And so...
Masters of the Universe.
Injustice.
A lot of
maybe
TV show.
Files Volume 3, maybe?
Holland Files Volume 3, if you guys want to hear a little bit of...
That subtleness from Garrett. Solid.
Sizzle!
Available for pre-order right now.
Yes.
So go ahead and go to rootsofswampthing.com, pre-order that book. You don't want to be left behind in the dust. And that dust we've seen in this issue might make you merge with the Swamp Thing. So
Left in the rot.
Yeah, I was thinking rot, not that we're going to have sex with Swamp Thing. We get left in the dust.
That's TV show also, because that'll be something if you want to get in early, you don't want to be that person in class being like, I know the Swamp Thing. Let me tell you about him. Get into it now. So rootsofswampthing.com, go there. Fantastic episode. Hold on. Subscribe to our show too while you're at it. Mm-hmm. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio. Find us on YouTube also, where we do the Gauntlet. Not last week because Garrett gave it to me.
It was New Year's. Sorry, bros.
Well, where's it this week? And
I'll make it happen.
and you can find this show on there also. Is there anything else? Nope, that's it. I think.
Sizzle Reel. That we've been.
Do you want a little sneak preview of the Holland Files number 3?
Oh yeah.
So we've been talking about the whole. Okay.
Well, I must have missed it,
John.
I think you meant my thing was a sizzle reel. I thought I was getting pumped.
Nah, yours was like bugging out. I'm waiting for this sizzle reel, man.
Go ahead. Little preview here.
All right, so Holland Files 3 is currently at the printers. It'll be done by mid-month, hopefully, and then everyone who's purchasing Holland Files 3, which is the world's first and only international Swamp Thing fanzine, made up of art and written material from contributors from around the world. In issue 3, some little previews that you have to look forward to is Stephen R. Bissett, contributed 18 pieces of art for the book, and he said, use them however I please. So the whole book is salt and peppered with a ton of amazing art. So a little preview, Nancy Collins was interviewed yet again by Joe Borgiano. Very excited to have him contribute. And I'm going to read a little excerpt of his interview with Nancy. When he was interviewing her, she had mentioned her concept for the plot line called Arcane Blood. And I'm going to read the little intro paragraph that Nancy provided for the interview. So, Nancy Collins' Arcane Blood. The following is a proposal Nancy Collins sent Vertigo editor Axel Alonso for what would have been her third season on the series. Fans will be interested to see how it details it deals with the peculiarities of Tefe's bloodline, Abby's unexplored psychic powers, the return of the Holland imprinted Swamp Thing, and the various parties who each want Tefe, and the power she possesses for their own purposes. There's no doubt this world will have proved a fascinating and unique run in the series. Now, one little more tidbit. I'm going to read to you the letter that Nancy wrote to Alex Alonso, the Vertigo editor. So here's her note. I came up with this idea for a miniseries while in the tub. It's an attempt to utilize some of the supporting cast from Swamp Thing and combine various characters from Vertigo series past and present. It's not completely fleshed out because I wanted you to look at it before expending any extraneous energy on something that can't exist anywhere else but in the Vertigo universe.
Nice.
So her entire plot outline for this story is going to be in Holland Files 3. So make sure you pick it up at rootsoftheswampthing.com, or you can email me at hollandfileszine, that's Z-I-N-E, @gmail.com.
There you go.
Sizzled.
Holland Files, issue 3, number 3.
Number 3, both. Issue 3.
Issue 3, number 3, book 3, however you want to call it.
Still within volume number 1. People are kind of confused by that. These all fall
volume
within
1, number issue 3.
Yes, yeah. So what I'm going to do is, the idea is I'm going to put out 5 issues and then hopefully collect them all into a hardcover book. I know. But I'm kind of worried about how much that's going to cost. So that's down the road.
That's why you charge more.
You know what, John?
Are you chargeable?
You know what, John?
Come on, Marvel.
I'm not here to tell you how to run a business, but I would imagine a nice little Kickstarter might work out for us.
I believe so.
Yeah, and if you need help promoting that, always Wednesday Comics. Here we are. John Boylan to my left. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Across from me, Alex Olson himself, Garrett. And to my right, there he is, Alex Holland, Alex Pastrallo. I am your Pog, and we ride off into the sunset.
Hi-yo!
Wednesday Comics. Alex?
What?
Keep turning those pages?
Oh, you didn't do our thing of signing off, bro.
Oh, I've been Marvin.
I'm Alex.
I'm Garrett.
I'm John.
Hey, everyone. Keep turning those pages.